The GT Asia 2015 season is 3 rounds and 6 races into the most competitive series in its 6-year history. But as the series heads to familiar home turf at Sepang, Malaysia, the bar has been raised even further. For the first time in the series, GT Asia will compete a 3-hour endurance race, and round 7 will also count double points. And we're at Sepang in Malaysia, but more than just a regular round, this is something very special indeed. For the first time in its 6-year history, GT Asia is going long, 3 hours long in fact, Sean, and it really does put the cat amongst the pigeons this point in the championship.
Well, it opens everything up, double points. Guys that were having trouble earlier in the year are right back in this equation. And one of the ones to keep a close eye on, of course, is Mok Wang Sun. He's won the last 2 Sepang 12-hour races here, and he's also won 9 of the 20 GT Asia Series races here. So this could bring him right back into the equation. And a lot of these guys understand that. So the big word they've been talking all weekend is consistency.
How hard is it? I mean, most of these guys have done endurance races before, like Madeka here, of course, and they've got a lot of experience. But 3 hours for this particular format with a change of drivers, how's it going to be?
It's going to be interesting. We have to have 3 compulsory stops. We'll explain that during the coverage, but during those stops you can pit in a window. It's a 10-minute window. You can pit early, you can pit late. Now, it depends on which driver is behind the wheel at the time. But that's a strategy that's going to throw in. Safety cars always throw in a different strategy. So we're just not sure how this is going to play out. And the heat. The heat's very oppressive at the moment. It's really affecting some of the European drivers. And concentration is a big thing. So it's not just how you feel in the car. It's what you're thinking and where your brain's at as this race goes on. So 3 hours is going to be a long time.
Yep, you've got the weather, you've got the heat, the gentleman drivers, and of course the professionals. It's all to play for and for double points. Qualifying and the championship is right in the balance.
Yeah, this weekend in this season is very important because championship getting the double point.
Yeah, definitely will be an interesting challenge for all of us. We never had such a long race distance, so it will be good to see how the car and the driver will cope with a longer stint.
Yeah, I mean, definitely you drive an endurance race a bit different. Our approach is the same. I mean, the way that guys prepare the cars, we always do it everything to the top level, make sure the car can get through the race well. But I guess driving-wise, you have to approach the different mentality a little bit.
It's about doing the race perfectly. We haven't had much luck. At the beginning of the season, we had the pace, but not the luck. So hopefully the luck will swing around for this weekend.
Very nice to be here with FFF and with GT Asia. It's going to be first time for us to do an endurance race all together. So I think it's going to be a very interesting race.
Sepang Formula One circuit is one of the most popular venues in the region. Hot, fast and always challenging, and with the added spice of 3 grueling hours of racing, this is going to test the 2015 cars, teams and drivers of GT Asia to the very limit.
So we've just been trying to be consistent, trying to be doing the similar lap times to when the tyres are fresh, on full tanks of fuel, things like that, just to see where we are for the race. We really don't think qualifying is that important, but obviously it would be nice to start at the front. It makes it a little bit easier.
We're already on the way there. So every step, every improvement we made over the last 2 days has been exactly what we want. So our speed's getting better and better. The car's getting easier to drive, so we can keep it at a high level throughout the whole race.
During free practice, we are going to pretend to have some pit stop practice to make sure that the mechanics, that the drivers, that nobody makes mistakes. So it will be an interesting preparation during these days to get everything right for the race.
So we are now getting better, and the procedure of the practice doing well. So now just we do our best.
Well, of course, the start of the race, it's always a bit different because, of course, you are not completely, you don't want to gain everything at the beginning. We have plenty of time to do it. But the approach is, of course, to be very consistent, no mistake, everything good on pit stop and all the procedure, no penalty. So I think that's already a good starting point for an endurance race.
Here in Sepang, and it's hot, I can tell you. We've got a 3-hour endurance race coming up. I'm just taking a look out of the corner of my eye at the man on pole position, Darrell Young and the VLT Aston Martin, and obviously there were a lot of decisions to be made as to who would start the drive and who would start the first stint. Obviously both the gentleman drivers and the professionals have all got to take different stints, but who would start the race? And I can just see that the battle has been won by the young Englishman, Daniel Lloyd, who of course has done a startling job in qualifying but will not be starting. It looks as though your teammate's going to do the business. Let's get both of you in here, but Darrell, obviously you're kind of leading the team. What was the decision process? Because I noticed that Richard Lyons isn't doing the first stint behind you.
Well, actually, for me, in these decisions, it's all the team manager's job and the engineers, so they make the calls on this. But I think with Daniel and I both being silver drivers, we have a little bit more flexibility on how we work. Obviously, Daniel's new to the championship here, so I know a bit more of the surroundings about which drivers are around, which cars are behind me, beside me. Of course, we are our teammates behind us, but it's going to be, it's better to start off when you're around the surroundings, around people you know. So I think that makes it easier, and it was the obvious decision for us. With the other car, they chose to go with Richard, so we'll see how the strategy plays out.
And how do you feel, Danny? It's obviously a big race for you, but so far you've equipped yourself pretty good around this circuit.
Yeah, good. Darrell's starting, which is the right decision. Like I said, he knows the surroundings. I'll be sat in the aircon while he's...
Not for long.
Not for long. So yeah, make sure I'm ready, get in the car and nice and consistent. It's so hot here, it's 36 degrees air temp. It's going to be about looking after the tyres and making sure we're strong at the end of the race.
Well, best of luck to both of you. Obviously, Darrell, best of luck in the first stint. And watch out for that VLT car going strong right from the start for Aston Martin. Let's go a little bit further around here because, obviously, as we said, choice of where to start and also championship leaders in the Ferrari. That's going to be an important one too. Davide Rizzo and Anthony Liu, who are sat over there, as you can see. And interestingly enough, both are suited up. So I'm not quite sure which of the two of them will race. Let's even find out. Get a bit of insight. Guys, got to find out who's going to be starting the race. Is it Davide or is it... okay.
Gabriel.
All right, Gabriel's going to do the start of the race. So there's a little bit of a tactic change here by the championship leaders, but it is actually Davide. We've just been talking to, Darrell Young. When you've got two drivers that are very fast as you two are, it doesn't really matter who starts, does it?
Well, it depends how the race goes, but normally, yeah, it's both good, so we can keep our same pace and then should be okay.
Looking forward to 3 hours?
More than 3 hours.
Yes, it's going to be more than 3 hours, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. For sure, this will be for sure our first endurance race here this year. So I think it will be a bit challenging, but we have been used to do it some of the already on the past, so it's going to be good.
All right, best of luck to you. And Anthony, are you looking forward to this?
Very much, thank you.
Okay, staying cool, Anthony Liu. And I'll tell you what, though, once he gets started and once he gets racing, he doesn't say too much, but I'll tell you what, he does all his talking in the car. Watch out for the number 37 Ferrari 458. It's one of the most beautiful cars on the grid, and it has proved to be the best car in the championship so far in 2015. Let's go a little bit further down. And, of course, the number 88, Aston Martin. Again, decisions to be made as to who would start. Would it be Frank Yu or Richard Lyons? Well, that decision has been made, and as you can see, Richard Lyons still talking with his team. But, Richard, we're just obviously live on the internet, and we just wanted to know the decision-making process as to who would drive the first stint.
Well, we know Frank's a really fast starter, so we've give him the orders to go for it. So we'll see what happens. But it's a long race, so we'll play it calm.
He's looking very relaxed right now in the background, making fun of you. But he better put in a quick stint, right? Because you'll be, you don't want to have to push. You don't want to have to work too hard to catch up, do you?
No, well, that's it. It's a bit too hot for me today, so we'll take it easy for my stint and let him do all the hard work.
Do you actually look at this as well? I mean, you're all racing against each other, but do you look across and look at that 458 and go, you know what? That's all that matters right now, getting into that first corner. We make sure that these two cars get in front of that one.
No, absolutely. I joke about him having a fast start. Really, we want to get through the first 2 stints, let everybody spread out, and then we'll see where we are. It's going to be a hot race. You know, the engine temps are going to be high for everybody. Tires are going to be right at their limit. So, yeah, it's a bit of strategy has to go on for the first 2 stints, and then we'll take it from there.
All right, watch out for the number 88. And let's have a quick word with Frank, who was swimming his way. Looking forward to the first stint. I mean, you're old hat at this now.
Well, yeah, just got to keep the car good, in a good position, and hand it over to Richard.
That's the party believer, bro. How about going fast and annihilating the competition?
No, it'll be tough. We're very close. I think the first 7 cars are within just 10. So, like I said, you know, going into turn 1, the start of the race, just keep it clean. Everybody should keep it clean all the way up to turn 5, and then I think we're going to have a pretty good race all the way through.
It's going to be definitely sapping physically. I know you're fit, but these are always hard races, aren't they?
Yes, yes. I mean, look at today. There's no air whatsoever. I think
you could a pin could drop, couldn't it?
Yeah, and inside the cockpit is over 60 degrees, so that's why we're using the cool shirt.
Okay, cool shirt. Watch out for those. They're all wearing them. And best of luck to Frank Yu. Just looking out of the corner of my eye, the man who has put this all together, David Sonninger. And first of all, I'm sure probably smiling for the sort of historic moment of TCR getting underway. Great race, good field, early days. But are you happy with what you saw?
Yeah, I'm delighted with what I saw. You know, it's, as you say, it's the first race. It was a big challenge just to get to this point, but we're up and running, which is the main thing. And I'm very encouraged by what we saw. You know, the concept is proven, and I'm really happy with it. The race was good, was entertaining. So, yeah, it's a good first step. So we're off.
And how about this? Another historical moment. Here we are at Sepang, and you and I have been involved in this forever. This is a real special moment for both of us, because to see as many great cars and as many great drivers involved in Motorsport Asia right here, right now, ahead of an historic 3-hour race, it's got to be fun.
Oh, yeah, it's great. And I'm really looking forward to it. Of course, it's a big challenge. It's a new format for us, so we need to be very careful to get it all right. But apart from that, you know, we've got a world-class grid here. The cars are spectacular. It's really exciting. You can't call it. The qualifying was so close. So it's really exciting. I can't tell you who's going to win the race, which is really amazing. And I think we're in for a really good afternoon, so I'm really looking forward to it.
I seem to remember the days when you would suit up and get out there. Are you keen for a stint maybe later in the day and sneak in there?
No, I think those days are over, Johnny.
Instead, David Sonninger just brought out the whole family, so I know it's a big occasion because the whole Sonninger clan is here. But a proud moment for you and for Motorsport Asia.
Yeah, and absolutely. And the best thing about that is one of my daughters doesn't like it, which is according to plan.
Good, so she won't race then?
No, so
that'll save you some money.
Exactly, so plan A is going well. No, but seriously, you know, it's a great weekend. You know, it's a local race for me. We live here in KL, so it's good for them to come down, and they brought all their school friends and everything, so at least they get a chance to get up close with the cars and everything. It's exciting for them. But it's a great outing for everybody. You know, it's a really exciting weekend for the spectators, and it's a great show. So very happy to be able to put this on and be part of it, and I'm looking forward to a fantastic weekend.
Well, I know you're a busy man. I'll let you get back to it. Thanks for talking to us. David Sonninger, the CEO of Motorsport Asia. Let's look further down the grid. We've seen the top 3 cars in the championship, and looking a little further down, I'm looking at the McLaren here, and this, of course, is one of the most beautiful cars in terms of preparation and in terms of worldwide. The McLaren have come into the racing scene over the last few years, and obviously we know their accolades in Formula One. They're not having the best of seasons in Formula One at the moment, but certainly in GTs, they're one of the cars to watch out for. And Hamaguchi, and talking of Formula One, Antonio Liuzzi, one of the drivers in this team, and they start just a little further back in the number 5 and the number 55, and so they start effectively alongside each other on the grid. Talking of Antonio Liuzzi, he's right here, and Antonio, just your thoughts going into a 3-hour race. Obviously, you're not doing the first stint, or you would be dressed up.
Yeah, definitely. Hiroshi is going to start the first stint of the race, and yeah, we're so looking forward to these 3 hours. Obviously, it's difficult to make prediction for a 3 hours race, but obviously we want to pass the first lap without any problem, and then we're going to see the weather forecast is not perfect for the next 3 hours, so there might be some changes during the race.
Now, you're famous for sprint racing in Formula One. Have you done much endurance racing?
I did in the last 3 years. Once I stopped Formula One, I did some enduro race in a WEC 6-hour race, so I'm quite used to this. So I'm looking forward as well to see with how I cope with Hiroshi.
As they say in Italy, un bocca al lupo.
Crepi il lupo, grazie.
Grappy Luca. Follow me. I just see Hamaguchi out of the corner of my eye, as always, followed by Glamour. All the pretty girls want a picture of Hamaguchi because that's that kind of guy, you know. I'll see if he'll let an ugly guy in here. Hamaguchi-san, konnichiwa. Gambate, as they say. Hey, what do you think?
Oh, it's hot.
It's very hot.
Definitely hot. It's not good for us. It's a turbocharged car, but well, let's see how it goes.
Do you think it's going to be a race where we won't know what the outcome will be right until the last stint, or will we be understanding it after maybe 45 minutes?
Well, we're expecting some rain in the afternoon maybe, so it'll be quite exciting at the end.
Time for a McLaren win?
Of course.
All right. And like I say, Gambate, as they say in Japan. Let's see if we can go a little bit further back. I'm not sure if you still follow me, but let's go a little bit further back. The grid is starting to clear, and certainly another one of the favourites will be this Singer Ferrari entry here. And this is Todd Petty in the number 11. And just getting ready for their race. Looking for some drivers, can't see any, but oh, here we go. Quick word. Now, what are your thoughts? Obviously, an up and down season so far. When the car's right and when everything's going well, you know, you're getting wins and you're vying for the championship. But double points, an important race this week.
Well, I think it's not so bad. We just started with a Ferrari. We have a second and a first. I think we're quite happy so far. And I think this race we're very fast, and we'll make our way up, and we'll go for the win.
So, Carlo, what's the thought in the first stint? Obviously, it looks as though you're going to be in that first stint. Am I right in saying that?
I'll tell you when I'm in the car.
Okay, so, still a little bit of tactics being played. We saw that a few guys have played their hands. Richard Lyons is not doing the first stint. Frank Yu's going to do it. It looks as though Davide Rizzo is going to do the first stint. But, you know, with a couple of cars like that, they're fairly evenly matched. But there are some definite sort of professional versus gentleman driver battles here, and it is an important decision, isn't it?
Well, as long as the gentleman driver watch out, because normally they're not used to driving with the pro, everything should be fine, and then we'll see who make the best strategy after 3 hours.
Is it a concern of yours as the race wears on, as people get tired, and offline it's very dirty, that some of the more inexperienced drivers may not be able to make, get out of your way in time?
Yeah, because GT Asia is about pros racing against the pros and the M against the M at the same time on the track. This makes things interesting, but that's motorsport, and I'm sure that my partner is going to do a good job. So it's a good situation for us.
All right, Carlo Van Dam getting ready to take part. We don't know whether he's taking part in the first stint or the second stint, but we'll soon find out, and it doesn't really matter. They've all got to do their part. As you can see, the grid is clearing, but I just want to get back, because one of the big stories of this series is obviously the entry of Bentley. Bentley, we've talked about Ferrari, we've talked about Aston Martin, but we haven't yet talked about Bentley. Paddy Roberts, I can see out of the corner of my eye, will be doing the last-minute checks with his team. Paddy, what about a win here for Keta today?
Well, it's tough from back here. We didn't have a particularly good qualifying.
What are you doing back here?
Well, he had a mega lap in his qualifying, but unfortunately we had an engine problem with Adderley. So, yeah, we had no power at all, so we ended up back here. So, yeah, it's 3 hours.
Was it an engine problem you could fix in time?
Yeah, I mean, it was just electronics. It just spiked everything and lost all our power. So he was just cruising around, but couldn't do a decent lap. But,
we'll see if we can get Keta Sauer, because obviously, good luck, Paddy. Here are the boys in the Bentley boys. And what about it today? You're looking good. Everybody's ready. Keta, how about it what do you got going there? Oh, I'm glad you didn't get that. That's your water, is it?
Of course, here is a hot place, so we need to wear the cool shirts. And now we are getting better, going to the better. So we just do our best to 3 hours coming.
What about yourself, Adlai? Obviously, we had a slight problem in qualifying. I don't know what happened, but they've rectified it, yeah?
Yeah, the car is fixed. Thank you to Absolute Racing for doing the fantastic job. We had a bit of issue with the engine, so let's have a look. Hopefully, we had no time to test between quali and race, so hopefully the problem's fixed. We put in a new ECU, so yeah, it should be good.
The good news is you've won the competition for the prettiest grid girl, so I think that's an extra couple of points on the grid for these guys. They may not have the starting position they want, but they've won that competition. So gambate to both of you, and good luck in the race itself. So there you go then. Samson Chan is hot from his race. How was your race, sir? People spinning you around. What was that all about? Very ungentlemanly of you. Or them.
I think he was a bit aggressive.
A bit too aggressive. I was very upset for you, but you're okay. You drove very well, my friend.
What to do?
What do you think about this grid? You've been involved in Asian motorsport for a long time, and you must be proud.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Very interesting.
Very interesting indeed. Okay, I'll let you get back because obviously they're clearing the grid. But just a few of the thoughts. James Collado and Mok Wen Sung, obviously, it looks as though Mok's getting into the car. I'll talk to James. Big day for the series, but a big day for you guys too. And obviously, Mok, without a doubt, one of the favourites as you are yourself. But this is a race you really want to get the double points in, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. I mean, we're going to do everything we can to get up the front of the grid. We had a bad qualifying, a few issues with the car, which was unfortunate. So, yeah, long race, 3 hours. Pretty experienced in the long races. So it's just about, keeping it easy around the first corner and just doing the endurance, making sure the car lasts, and I'm sure we can get a good result.
James, you race around the world. How is it racing in Asia, and how's the competition?
Blooming hot, isn't it?
It is very hot. It's not like England, is it?
No. But luckily we've got air conditioning, and I think the Bentley and the McLarens, they don't. So
that'll help.
Yeah.
So what have you told Mok? Do the usual. You've got no worries. He wins every time he races here.
Well, he's doing a great job, and yesterday he was doing fantastic times in the race stints with the heavy fuel load. So no, we're in good shape. Like I said, we just need to make it around the first corner, and we'll be there.
Best of luck to you. Watch out for the number 1 from Clearwater Racing. Mok Wen Sung jumps into the car. Let's move forward. Everybody's cleared the grid. We need to do the same way. Pity starts for that team. It looks as though Carlo Van Dam has given the chance for him to race. Then we look a little further ahead. Richard Wee and Hiro Kato. Then the McLarens. We've already spoken to the team. We spoke to Antonio Liuzzi and both the number 55 and the 55. Richard Lyons and Frank Yu in the Aston Martin. 2 Aston Martins, 1 Ferrari. The 37 has been quick off the line everywhere it's gone. It's a 3-hour endurance race. A little bit of history for GT Asia. We're about to get underway. Sean, take it away.
Thank you, Johnny Green. Fantastic run down the grid there. Nice to talk to some of these guys and actually get a feeling for what's going to go on. Very interesting to see the starting lineup with many of these teams, because when we spoke to many of the drivers before this race, just after qualifying, the view was all the professional drivers would start. They would open up a bit of a gap. We talked about strategy. What will happen? Don't you want your faster driver in the car towards the end of the session actually going through the field to try and take the victory in the closing stages, perhaps as opposed to the amateur driver who's not used to these longer races, the heat, the conditions, they're not as fit traditionally as the pro drivers, although some of them certainly are. They will be putting themselves under pressure. Do you want that situation? So it certainly looks like many of the teams have taken the approach of putting the AM driver into the car first. Many of them are very accomplished in certainly at Sepang, but certainly pace-wise too. We saw in the bronze drivers session yesterday afternoon that some of the leading bronze drivers, the AM class drivers, were turning laps in the 206s. So take a quick look at the Sepang circuit, 5.543 kilometres in length. The longest straight, the main straight, is exactly 927 metres long, 927.5, 15 corners. Rotation is in clockwise direction. It's 2 long straights, of course, the run down the main straight and the final run from turn 14 to turn 15. A Formula 1 inspired circuit, has some great racing, but certainly off the start, and one of the things the teams would have considered is that complex through turns 1 and 2. And that will make things very interesting, because you've got a long wide straight into a deep braking zone, a very fast right-hander followed by, or a very slow right-hander in essence, but it comes on you very fast, into a tight left-hander, and then opens up out to turn 3, sweeps up to turn 4 uphill, and then through to the back of the circuit. So a lot of things to be taken into consideration. Across 5 seasons already of the GT Asia Series at Sepang. This is the 6th season of the series, the historic first ever 3-hour endurance race. There's been 10 races prior to this one. This is race number 11 at the Sepang circuit with GT Asia Series. Of those races, 2 races per round, or of those rounds rather, 2 races per round, 20 races. 11 of those races have been won by the Clearwater Racing team. 9 of those 11 wins were taken by the reigning champion, Mok Wen Sung. The last 2 Sepang 12-hour races have also been won by Mok Wen Sung, the reigning champion. So you would say that team starts favourite. They really need to get their championship back on track. Unfortunately, as we saw during the roll-around lap for round 3 of the championship at Okayama, they had a fuel issue. The car caught fire. It very badly damaged the rear of the car, damaged the chassis, damaged the aluminium frame, and that set them well and truly back down the order. Mok Weng Sun conceded afterwards the championship was over, but he could get it back here this weekend. So into the qualifying highlights from earlier on this morning. And Johnny, it was a pretty exciting session and that pace was incredible.
Yeah, and it's amazing when you look back to, 8:30 this morning, completely different conditions to what I've just experienced on the grid. Yeah, normal suspects, everybody warming their tyres. But conditions have been actually extraordinary for Sepang because of the fact that we've had no rain, really. There has been rain in the area, but not much at Sepang. We had a drizzle last night. And usually, once it rains here at Sepang, it kind of levels things out. But we've got a lot of debris on track, a lot of rubber on track, and it's getting grippier and grippier out there. And certainly that's been a surprise. So the possibility of rain may be later in the day.
One of the things that qualifying showed for the first time, because there's just one race this weekend, ordinarily we have 2 qualifying sessions, 2 races. The qualifying session 1 sets the starting grid for race 1, qualifying session 2 sets the grid for race 2. In this instance, the starting grid was set by the combination of qualifying 1 and qualifying 2, so it was vital that your driver partnership were as closely matched on pace and quick as possible. In the end, we saw that Carlo Van Dam set a blistering pace during the opening qualifying session. A 2:03.4 was an incredible run. And in session 2, it was Darryl O'Young, you can see the number 99 VLT car leading the championship, that took the top spot. But ultimately, it was the combination. Sorry, it was Daniel Lloyd in the car in the second session. He set the top spot on his debut for the Craft Bamboo Racing team. And ultimately, that team came away with the pole position and a great result for them.
Yeah, it's been interesting talking on the grid because the combinations of drivers out there, you've got, like you say, the guys on the front row, and interestingly enough, both guys on the front row have 2 drivers in their car of, I wouldn't say equal standard, but not far off. Anthony Liu has proved time and time again he's a measure for David Arizo, and obviously Daniel Lloyd, in a very short space of time, has proved he's just as quick, or can be, as Darryl O'Young. So I think both of those 2 are pretty happy with their decisions, that it doesn't matter who's doing the stint, they've all got to do equal stints. Likewise, looking further back as we look at the starting grid, the Aston Martin of Richard Lyons. We'll talk about them, but it's O'Young and Rizzo in pole position for BBT versus Craft Bamboo. 99 versus 37, Ferrari versus Aston Martin. It's going to be a really interesting start. Just behind is Richard Lyons and Frank Yu. Frank Yu will do the first stint for Craft Bamboo Racing. Caldarelli and Wu for the Triple F Racing team by ACM. They start in 4th position. Then it's Liuzzi and Hamaguchi. Kato and Wee in Clearwater Racing's number 6 position in the number 12 car. Big grid, big field, bit of history in 3 hours racing here at Sepang. Carlo Van Dam and Biron Bhakti in 7th position, and a rather cagey Carlo at the start of this one. Sauer and Fong in 9th position. Had some problems in qualifying. We heard from Paddy Roberts. They've rectified that. Watch them come through, especially early on. I'm expecting a very aggressive and racy start. Fauzi and Lowe, 11. Tappy and Young, likewise for the Absolute team from 12. Expect them to make a big lunge at the start. Myrick and Lee and another Bentley. So the Bentley's got work to do. Antunes and Salmon in the Triple F Racing team by ACM in 14th position. Then Lim and Mo in 15th position. Lim and Farmer in GDL, the new team to the championship, in 16th position. Good to have them on board, 2 bronze drivers. Aoki starts off the GTMs with Arata, the Japanese entry. Aoki, of course, one of the heroes, already a winner for Delango Racing. Mori and Makino of Gulf Racing Japan, and Luff and Wang. And remember, 2 championships involved, the GT3 and the GTM. Ghirardelli and Kuni. Another Gulf Racing Japan car, Choi and Lee for Taiwan Top Speed. Taiwan Top Speed, one of the perennial entries to this GT Championship. Liu and Wang, also of Taiwan Top Speed. Dorset and Curran of New Zealand. Good to have the Kiwis, as ever, evident in motor racing here in Asia, as they are in the Porsche Carrera Cup and around the world. It's going to be a long race. It's going to be a hard race. It's going to be an interesting tactical race. I think the one thing that is going to really throw a few people is the fact that we're going to have pit stops of 5 minutes, Sean. And I was talking to some of the drivers. This is going to be a wonder. You know, once you've got a bit of fuel, once you change the tyres, the one thing that they can do that they can't do in the normal GT Asia Championship is talk to each other driver-wise. And I think that tactically could be a great opportunity for them to talk about the gearbox, to talk about the track, to talk about where the places are that are you know, conjectural places in terms of overtaking and so on and so forth. So it's going to be interesting in that respect.
Well, there's more than just the length of the race that are different this weekend. We'll explain the compulsory pit stops. Of course, compulsory pit stops are a big part of every round of the GT Asia Series. But this weekend, because it's a 3-hour race, it's done very differently. 2 drivers, we have to explain how that works. But we'll get to that. It's not too detailed, but it will explain why there's a 5-minute break. You've also got a different tyre pool from Michelin. The S9L tyres, the control tyre, they've got 6 sets of tyres for the weekend to ensure that tyres are not going to be an issue. We've never seen a big issue with the Michelin tyre. It's very hot this weekend, but of course Michelin are well versed with this circuit. They've done a lot of testing here over the years, so we're not going to see a problem there. But to rule any of that out, and because we have a 5-minute pit window, it gives the teams the opportunity to not just fill the tanks again of the car, but also fit fresh rubber, and that's going to bring it's going to make it a race. We want to see a race. That's what it's all about.
Sean, for those tuning in on the live stream, just take us through how the stints work and in terms of how the pit windows work and in terms of how the driver changes work.
Every 45 minutes, essentially, there is a 10-minute pit window. So at minute 40, the pit window will open. At minute 50, the pit minute will close. Then at minute 80, the pit window will open again. And 10 minutes later, it will close. The final pit stop window, it's a compulsory stop. Every one of these is a compulsory stop. It will open at 130 minutes. So 2 hours and 10 minutes into the race, the final pit stop window will open. It will close 10 minutes later. It's up to the teams who they start in the car when they want the AM driver to pit and when they want to put the pro driver in. The idea is you don't want to have the pro driver doing the bulk of the race. You also want to give the AM driver a bit of a chance to have a break. The 5-minute compulsory stop is because this is the first time we've done it here. Some of these cars aren't necessarily set up for endurance racing. The Sepang 3Hour is set up for endurance racing. A number of the teams are. A number of the cars are built for endurance racing. Some of them further back in the GTM field, are not equipped for the fuel rigs that we see. So rather than disadvantage anybody, rush anything, certainly it's a safety issue when you're talking about fuel, we've made it a compulsory minimum of 5 minutes. If you take longer than that, that's a bit of an issue for you, but there still is a way for strategy to work into this. So it's going to be very interesting as the race plays on. You can see the Craft Bamboo team there. Matt Harvey, the young engineer from Australia, has done a fantastic job so far this year. He's got that number 99 VLT Aston Martin to the top of the championship points table. They will be watching on in interest. Frustration for them, though, is, of course, Jonathan Venter, who is one of the drivers at the top of this championship tree. 2 pole positions this year as we're coming towards the start line.
He's tuning in right now.
He is out of this championship, unfortunately.
G'day, mate. Get well.
Yes, disappointment for him. We're going to see the safety car pull away.
Here we are, about to go racing then. So now we see the lights come off on the safety car. And this start, and I'm thinking more especially for the Bentleys. That's who I'm keeping an eye on. Also on the McLarens, because obviously I also put the question to Richard Lyons, is it a case of trying to hold off that Ferrari right from the start? We know that in a straight line, they are very quick. The Bentleys will be quick, but they've got some traffic. So this start is going to prove oh so important. It's a 3-hour race from Sepang. GT Asia about to get underway for round 7 of the championship. Leading them away is the VLT Aston Martin. Alongside him, it's the BBT Ferrari 458 of Anthony Liu and Davide Rizzo. Rizzo will start the race. We're about to go green for 3 hours of GT racing from Sepang. Bring them down in formation. Everybody ready. One more formation lap. They've decided that they weren't all together, and that's not unusual. Just adds a little bit more tension and also gives us a little bit more time to... would you agree with me? You can see the Bentleys there. It's going to be quite an interesting start for them. Here's the first corner. Look how they funnel into this corner, and especially the next 2 corners. Look, it loops back on itself, and then into that very tight turn too. So I think this could be a very interesting start to the race with so many drivers wanting to get at the front early on.
Well, in the end, did we see too many pros actually starting in the cars? No, I don't think we did. So it'll be down to your successful drivers, your drivers that have got good pace. And we've seen those, of course, with...
mostly pros.
Well, absolutely. Daniel Lloyd was quite quick, but Darryl O'Young's chosen to start the car. Davide Rizzo is very quick. We know that. He's chosen to start the car. So we'll just see how this plays out. But it's going to be very, very interesting. We don't want to see too much contact. Now, that's the other thing that some of these drivers need to be mindful of. It is a very tight complex through turns 1 and 2. You want to be at the finish of this 3-hour race. You don't want to be getting involved in battles early in the piece where you're going to make contact and potentially risk your opportunities. A GT3 car these days has a lot of little winglets on the car, the aerodynamics, the flat floors, the dive planes, which are on the corners of the front of the car. They are not just there as luxury items or for aesthetics. They actually work. They're important in high-speed corners, which we have a lot of here at Sepang. So one little touch could jeopardise your entire race. It might be half a second a lap, but half a second a lap over 3 hours is dreadful. I mean, that's going to essentially cost you a race. So you want to be racy, but you've got to give each other a little bit of racing room as we start this race going into that first corner.
Sean, you've been with these boys all season long. Who's your money on a 3-hour endurance race in terms of form?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, you can't really look past the Clearwater Racing team, but there's a lot of competition. This year it's really stepped up. We don't know really how the Bentleys are going to go after 3 hours. Of course, we saw them earlier in the year at the Bathurst 12-hour. You've seen them in the endurance races in the US. They've been very good. All these cars are good. There's any number of potentially 10 teams in this race that could come to the fore. For mine, I think certainly the drivers at the front of the field are going to be right there. Aston Martin haven't had a lot of luck this year, the Craft Bamboo team. They've been in position to win races, so this might be their opportunity. Of course, we said double points. This is a chance for these teams to get right back in the championship. Certainly drivers like Mok Weng Sun are right out of it at the moment after that fire at Okayama. They could be building a championship from this weekend alone, so they want to make sure they're there right at the finish of this race.
The experience of Darrell O'Young now telling as the whole field gets behind him. He's in charge of this race, and he'll want to get this formation lap done and get this race started. They do not want to do another formation lap. They just want to get going and get racing. But from Darrell's point of view, he does not want that 37 to get ahead of him at the start. It started in Korea back in May. We went to Okayama in Japan and then Fuji in Japan. But now we're here at Sepang in Malaysia for the start of an historical 3-hour race. We go to green, and away we go. The Aston Martin's got away well, but so too did the Ferrari. They're jostling for position. One of the McLarens already looking for a position. 3 wide going into the first corner, but it looks as though Aston Martin have got this. Have they? Maybe not. Here comes the Ferrari. Davide Rizzo looking very racy in the opening stint. Everybody cleanly through the first turn, but will they get through the second turn as well? Yes, they do, and it is Aston Martin. Darrell O'Young holds on to the lead early on, and it's second place, 37 BBT of Davide Rizzo of Italy as they head up to turn 4, and it's Frank Yu in the second of the Aston Martins in third place, but now being put under big pressure from another one of the Ferraris who goes past him. Bentley through in turn 4, and some dust flying up there in the background, but one of the Bentleys has got through. It looks like into 5th place by the looks of things as they head through turns 5 and 6. Good clean start though, Sean.
That was a good start, and it needed to be a clean start. That looked like Kitasawa, who's in the number 8 car. That's also a championship leading car, so he's jumped behind the wheel. Adley Fong, get to see the move. That was a very aggressive move across there. That may have been Jeffrey Lee in the number 7 J-Fly Bentley taking a position away from Mok Weng Sun there. No, the position's gone further back, so it's certainly been a good start. It's been a clean start as Weng Sun now looks down the inside of Zen Low to take position away. It's Jeffrey Lee behind him. He's one of the Nitro cars, the GDL racing cars that we've seen for the first time this weekend in position further back. So it's Darrell O'Young, it's Davide Rizzo, and then Todd Petty behind him, then Frank Yu. And Frank Yu will come under pressure, I would imagine, very quickly from Kitasawa, who'll be very keen to get to the front of this field. When you're talking about the pro drivers, and you're talking about some of the best GT drivers in the Asian region, that man certainly has to be right there at the top of the table.
Basically clean start, maybe they needed an extra formation lap. Darrell O'Young leads this massive field of GT3 cars down towards the last corner here. Everybody jostling for position. It's a long, long way to go. 2 hours and 57 minutes. Now the first lap is complete, and everybody now takes a sigh of relief, so to speak, because the race is underway, and it's time now to tactically start to think about how you're going to play out this race. Frank Yu under big pressure already from the Bentley.
Good job by Dominic Ange there, back further in the black Ferrari. You can see in position number 6, the 27 car. he's immediately ahead of these guys. He's moved right into position there behind Kitasawa, who's taken that position away from Frank Yu as they go into turn number 2. So Sawa-san now up to position number 4, the points leader. He is mindful too of the fact that the driver at the very front of this field, Darryl O'Young, is leading this championship as well. So he doesn't want to let him get out of sight for when they do the driver change. And you've got the 2 youngsters, Daniel Lloyd and Adderley Fong, take over those 2 cars. So Frank Yu drops back now to position 6. The dominant Ange has taken that position away from him. And it looks very likely that Richie Wee, that's the rear car there. No, Frank's not giving up just yet. He's gone around the outside to take the position away. And that's one of the McLarens. That could be the 55 car, and that'll be Ronald Wu, the young driver from Open Wheelers, the Chinese driver, Formula Masters China Series, who's done a great job starting this number 5 car that he shares with Andrea Caldarelli, of course, a Hong Kong-based driver racing in Chinese Open Wheelers over recent years. So he's doing a good job there. He is. Well, in fact, that's Hiroshi Yamaguchi in the 55 car. Of course, all these cars are identical, the 5, the 55 and the 15. The JV Global car of Jackie Young, the car he shares with Duncan Tappy. They did a great job earlier in qualifying today.
So we've got 2 distinct battles going on. Frank Yu trying to hold off the chasing pack, but Kitasawa is the man on the move at the moment. The Japanese driver in the number 8. Bentley's got a hand and he's pushing hard. His last lap at 2:11.5 was quicker than the man in front of him, and he's got ahead of Frank Yu because of that fact. We go down the back straight now. Darryl O'Young continues to lead. Davide Rizzo in 2nd place, and Pitty still in 3rd. And here comes Sauer. We'll take a look at the times. Last time out, O'Young did a 2:09.4. That was to sort of set out the benchmark, and I think those times will drop as the race goes on. But I'm interested to see how Sauer goes in this lap. 2:05.9, 2:06.3, then Pitty goes 2:06.4, and 2:07 Sauer, so not quick as I thought he might be in this particular lap. But early days yet, but Sauer's right where he needs to be, and continuing now. The pressure's still very much on Frank Yu as they dive into turn 1, and up the inside comes Dominic Ang.
We were talking during qualifying that we may have seen the last of the number 20 Golf Racing JP 991 Porsche Cup car of Dylan Didali and Hisashi Kuni, but they made a gearbox change overnight. They've qualified. They were a little bit further back than they would like, but he's clearly behind the wheel. He's had a fantastic start, holding down position number 12 and leading the GTM class. So that's a good result for them. You can see them just behind there, immediately behind Ronald Wu in the number 5 Triple F racing team by ACM McLaren 650S.
I'm also keeping an eye on Duncan Tappy and Young's car. They are in the number 77. They're in 9th at the moment, but they just turned in a 2:07.064, so on the same pace as their sister car Sauer in 4th position, and they too will be pushing hard to get up that table board in the early stages of this one. It's an important weekend for the Bentleys. You can see the lights flashing to say, we're coming through, get out of the way. It's the international signal for, hey, I think I'm faster than you. Get the heck out of the way.
It's a matter of whether or not people speak that language.
Most of them do, but most of them don't like it.
Well, they're certainly trying intimidation. You can see Pitty Biramdakti doing the same thing to Frank Yu on that opening lap. So it's a tactic. Some of them try it, some of them don't. So you see the lights on now for the Nexus car. They're doing a good job, but I'm surmising that perhaps that is Hiroki Kato, who's driving with Richard Wee in the number 12 Clearwater Racing car, the car that's immediately behind the number 27 Nexus Infinity Ferrari 458. We're assuming Dominic Ange in behind the wheel, because a number of these driver combinations didn't confirm what they were doing until they were in the grid. You saw it.
Yeah.
We thought Carlo Van Dam was going to be in the car, where in fact Pitty Biramdakti
That might be an
decided that he
interesting
would take
decision.
that.
Yes,
absolutely.
that's why they were being as cagey as they were, because they knew they were trying to sort of play a card, and it is a game of poker at 170 miles an hour pretty much, and I think that was the card they were playing, which is they didn't really want to let anybody know what their decision was, and it may prove to be a brilliant, wise choice. It may not prove to be as significant, but we'll soon find out. Long way to go though yet.
It was interesting that the comment that was made by Hiroshi Hamaguchi on the grid when you spoke to him, that one of the things they have to consider here this weekend is the severe heat and humidity of the Sepang circuit. It's in the mid to high 30s now. Humidity would be certainly in the 90s. The turbo cars tend to suffer a little bit. Now that's the Bentley with a 4-litre twin turbo and the McLaren 650S GT3 with a 3.8-litre twin turbo. So they are the most affected by the heat conditions. It's the naturally aspirated cars. We can see 3 of them on screen there. The 4.5-litre V8 Ferrari and the 6-litre V12 Aston Martin that tend to make the best of these conditions. So, I mean, that also puts into perspective the job that Keita Sawa's doing. He's doing a very good job to be holding down position number 4. But I'm impressed by Pitty. He's moved right onto the tail of Davide Rizzo now, only half a second in the number 11 Singer TP12 Racing Ferrari 458 that in fact won during round 5 of the championship. Now we see some brake lock-up. That's not
Turn
what
4,
we want to
that's
see.
one of the Ferraris, the 78.
That is the George Chu car, but I believe Robert Lee started that. I could see as you walked off the grid, George Chu heading back into the pits in his shorts and his thongs, so he certainly wasn't going to be starting that car. So frustration a little bit there for Robert Lee running off the circuit.
And for those of you who don't speak Australian, those thongs he was referring to are the things on his feet, so don't write in.
Well, we're waiting for people to write in.
Yeah, tweet us. Let us know. What's the tweet for the GTH?
So certainly McLaren are supporting us. McLaren GT are on Twitter. They are following this stream, so they'll be very interested to see how this plays out, because already in the 2015 season, round 3 of the championship at Okayama, Hiroshi Hamaguchi has taken victory alongside Tonio Luzzi. So they are well and truly in this championship, and the Triple F racing team by ACM operation, very, very good operation. Got some serious engineering behind them, some fantastic cars, and drivers with Formula 1 experience, drivers with fantastic regional experience here in GT Asia.
So a long way to go in this, but the race is settling down. At the front, we've got 3 distinct battles here between the top 3. Young, Rizzo, and Biramakti. Top Pitty doing a very good job in 3rd place to stay with the leaders at the moment. Less than 2 seconds between them. And then we've got a good battle also between Wee Sauer and Frank Yu, who's dropping off the pace a little bit, having been up in 3rd place. He's dropped down to 6th place at the moment, at 2:08.3 last time out. So then, looks as though Young has pulled away a little bit at the front. His last lap at 2:06.6. And Top Pitty still putting a lot of pressure on Rizzo, and I wonder, I think Rizzo could be probably a little bit quicker than he is at the moment, but obviously he knows it's hare and tortoise stuff, which is you don't need to win the race in the first 10 minutes. And remember that we are just 10 minutes in to a 3-hour endurance race. First time in the history of GT Asia we've tried this, and I think it's something that's going to become definitely a big part of the calendar. Sepang, the perfect place to do it. In comes the 78. We saw him at turn 4 in the gravel, and that looks like game over. Maybe they'll get him out later in the day if they can fix it, but he's certainly pulling in to his pit rather than talking to Pitty and looking down the inside of the last turn, turn 16, doesn't quite pull it off. So Darryl O'Young continues at the front, leading. His last lap at 2:06.7, so he's increased the pace a little. And now it looks as though the Singer car, the Ferrari, going side by side with Davide Rizzo and going around the outside. He'll have a better line if he holds it and will take 2nd place, and he does. Great battle for 2nd place. Rizzo loses out, and that's Top Pitty really aggressive and nicely done. That was a classic Sepang overtake, just what he needed at the right time. He moves to 2nd place. And that was a classic overtake, using turn 1 to go around the outside. It's risky if you don't put your foot in, but he did, and then takes the manoeuvre at turn 2.
Well, the Thai driver's been a real revelation so far this year. We probably didn't rate him as one of the drivers that might be able to run at the front of the field consistently with some of the pro drivers. But I mean, we're talking about the pace of Davide Rizzo and Anthony Liu being so good. They were both pole sitters against some very class European opposition last year at Shanghai. So they are no slouches, but Pitty's showing himself up to be very, very good. And as Carlo Van Dam explained to you on the grid, this is only new to them with the Ferrari. He's had a bit of experience, the Thai driver with the Porsche, but certainly with the Ferrari, they've managed to do a sterling job. So this looks like a GTM class battle. That's the Team Kiwi operation, going very wide, allowing a little bit of space. Therefore, that would be Craig Liu, I'm assuming, has started that black Taiwan Top Speed Racing Team Ferrari 458 Challenge car. So that is a battle a little bit further back in the field. We look down the order, and they're a little bit further back behind. We saw them earlier, the Takuma Aoki and Ken Urata GTM class Lamborghini, the bright blue car which we're very thankful is part of this field. They're right in this championship hunt. In fact, in the GTM class, they are not very far off the points lead, which of course is, or the points leader, which of course is Jerry Wang. 64 points currently for Jerry Wang in the GTM class battle. He has Australian Warren Luff alongside him. It's Kuma Aoki and Ken Urata, 61 points. The important thing here is they looked like they were out last night. They were suffering cooling problems, which was setting the ECU into all sorts of strange signals. There was alarms going off everywhere. They couldn't run more than a couple of laps without alarms going off, and fears for the engine. Of course, in a 3-hour race, that's the last thing you need. They've managed to resolve that overnight. They made qualifying. They've got a little bit of catch-up work to do, but keep an eye on Takuma Aoki. We've seen him what he can do on a bike, and he's more than capable, despite the fact that he's now, without the value of his legs, he's very, very quick. So a little bit taily there, Dominic Ange behind Frank Yu in the Craft Bamboo Aston, but still setting a pretty reasonable pace. The top pack are well and truly into the 207s, 208s, so that's a pretty good race pace just 15 minutes into this 3-hour race.
And discussion going on between the Aston Martin teams, the teammates, with 15 minutes gone of this race. It is Aston Martin who lead the way, with Young and Lloyd, who were the pole position setters. Van Dam and Biron Bakti in second place at the moment. Todd Pinney at the wheel. And Davide Rizzo and Anthony Liu looking quietly confident when I spoke to them on the grid. But well, they should be. They're leading the championship, and they are fast at any circuit they go to. Very racy at the moment is Hamaguchi in the number 55, currently in 9th position. And as you can see at the back of this group, and looking to try and get forward as soon as he can, Frank Yu just ahead of this group of 4. Hamaguchi looking for a way past, and just behind him is Mok Wen-sun, and there's no question that of all the guys that have raced here, Mok has got the best record of all. He's won so many endurance races here, and he's talking to his teammate on the grid and saying, obviously, perfect guy to have. James Gallardo saying Mok was the perfect guy to have, and no wonder he's in the car straight off the bat. And he'll try to, if he can keep that car in the top 10, he'll put Gallardo, who is an absolute weapon, behind the wheel of that car. I think we'll make it an interesting race. This is a great battle going on. The Bentley's under big pressure at the moment. Coming into turn 1 here at Sepang.
Duncan Tappy's doing a great job. We saw him mid-drive with the factory M Sport Bentley team last year in the Block Paint Endurance Series. Wasn't a place for him this year. Initially, one of the other factory drivers was due to come out and drive alongside the reigning GTM class champion, Jackie Jung, but he was unavailable. So Duncan flew out, and Jackie's had a fantastic time driving with the young Englishman, and not only are they driving together, but it's the benefit of these drivers, the pro drivers, as development drivers. As we see, that looks like Hamaguchi's run a little bit wide there. That's allowed his former Clearwater Racing teammate, Mok Wen-sun, to close onto the tail of the number 55 Triple F Racing McLaren. But certainly we've seen Duncan Tappy and Jackie Jung do a great job this year. Jackie was a little uncomfortable to start with. A long-time Audi driver, has won the championship GTM class last year in his Audi R8 LMS Cup car, but he took a little while to come to grips with it. Again, he's a gentleman driver. He doesn't drive one of these things every day. He drives a desk and flies to different parts of the world doing business, so he's not akin to the way these things work. He said to me not long ago, I started my career when Paul Newman started his career, and Paul Newman went on to win he won his class in Daytona, certainly,
yeah,
but is a very good driver at Le Mans. So Jackie's thinking, well, I've got a blueprint. That's where I want to be, but I need to be in the car more often. And this weekend, he's actually decided not to race an Audi R8 LMS Cup, which he always competes in order to focus on this and spend some time with Duncan learning. And this is valuable experience for him. Unfortunately, new cars always have teething problems, or traditionally have teething problems. The Bentley, certainly when it came out this year, during some of the practice sessions, the lights flashing in the car we're talking about, Duncan Tappy diving up the inside of Frank Yu.
And he might have gone a little too fast there.
I think he might
Frank
have
Yu says, thank you very much, but learn how to take the last corner,
now,
mate.
Here we go, drag race down the front straight. Let's see how this ends up. But he wants to spend time learning from Duncan Tappy to improve himself and take advantage of the time he's spending in the car. So really enjoying his experience now with the Bentley. So good luck to those guys as the number 77 JV Global car takes the position away. He'll hand across to Tiger Jackie when the pit window opens. So now we're 17 minutes in. 35 minutes is when the pit window will open. So you see many of these AM drivers dive into pit lane. Now, I'm looking at these nomination forms that they had to give us before the start of the race. Which driver was nominated as the starting driver? Stint number 1 and stint number 3 for car number 11 is Carlo Van Dam. Yet we're pretty convinced that you saw Penny Birrenbach behind the wheel of the car before the start of the race.
Might have done, but the way, to be honest, looking at the lap times, with no disrespect to Pitty, I've got a feeling that it is Van Dam behind the wheel, because he's been holding station with O'Young, and he got past Rizzo as though he was standing still, and Rizzo doesn't let anybody get past him. So I would hazard a guess that well, it is correct. So I think we're looking at Carlo.
Well, it's interesting too. Carlo said to me before, he said, who's going to start that 88 car? Oh, sorry, the 99 car. I would like to have Darryl start the car, because I think I can make a better meal of getting around him and getting away. I really want to attack him and just disappear. So that had something to do with the psychology of the championship, of course, but he hasn't done that. He hasn't shown the pace to be able to manage. Well, there's the answer. There's the answer right in front of you. Pitty Birrenbach is standing in pit lane watching the coverage. So clearly Carlo has started the car. So that's interesting in itself. Maybe it's conservation. Does he need to be pushing this early? We've got compulsory pit stops coming up. He's not wearing a penalty. Of course, the top 3 from the last round of the championship will have an additional time penalty during their first compulsory pit stop.
One of the McLarens is out or gone wide at turn 15, and luckily recovered. And it looks as though, yeah, he's back on track. No problems there, but for a moment there, big moment for one of the McLarens, I think. I think he just was on his own. He went wide, crossing the line again. 240. Still to go, and a long way. But we are getting creeping closer and closer to that first pit stop. Lado and Mock at the wheel, and Mock pushing very hard on the number 27 at the moment. They go through turn 2 again. There's Adelaide Fong getting ready. So the pit stop windows, 40 minutes to 50 minutes?
Yep, certainly between minute 40 and minute 50. I made a slightly wrong calculation there. The pit window will open. So whether you pit at the start of that pit window or whether you pit at the end of that pit window, that is entirely up to you, but you must pit in that period. If the pit window closes and you come in, that's going to incur a drive-through penalty, and that's the last thing you want in a race like this, where your competition isn't that much slower than you are. You can't be giving away wholesale time like 36 seconds or 35 seconds. It's just not what you need to be doing.
So there's still a full 20 minutes now before the pit stop opens.
Yep.
Frank Yu under pressure, and I think Mock's getting impatient. As they head through 9, he's all over the back of the Ferrari in front of him. Out of Dominic Ang and De Silva.
Well, he knows he's handing the car to James Collado, one of the World Endurance Championship of course, Ferrari 458 factory stars. Very, very classy driver, very quick here during practice. And we saw him, of course, in South Korea, and that car was very quick with Collado at the wheel. We saw a great battle during the opening race in South Korea during the first event of the year back in May. So it'd be nice to see James Collado back. He really enjoyed his time here because he's had experience at these events because of WEC. Oh, that's interesting. That's the number 55 car.
Well, that was the car that went wide and off into the gravel a moment ago.
Hiroshi
I think
Hamaguchi.
it was anyway.
Yep, yeah, it certainly was. And Ron Blue was the car that ducked back under him.
Young Lloyd still leading this race. The second Aston Martin under big pressure from the number 27.
So whilst we saw the Hamaguchi and Lucy car come into pit lane, they really, this isn't considered one of their compulsory stops. They're still going to have to come in during this window. So clearly they have an issue that they're trying to resolve. So that's the disappointment of pitting out. So now we're watching the car being pushed back into the garage. The right rear wheel is off the car which is a little unusual. So whether there's been some sort of contact somewhere that has caused a problem with these cars, but usually they're fairly bulletproof, aren't they? Certainly the Ferrari we've seen, and the Audis are classic for taking some big hits and being able to carry on. So usually they're fairly solid, the McLaren, so we shouldn't be seeing too much problem as a result of any contact. We didn't see any, certainly on screen, so we didn't notice that Hamaguchi had run off circuit, so there may be some sort of technical problem. We'll certainly go down and find out a little bit more about that shortly. But at the front of the field, this battle over the positions further back between Frank Yu, Dominic Ange and Mok Wing Sun is really starting to heat up as we're starting to head towards that very first compulsory pit stop window. GTM class leader Dylan Dedali back in position number 14. He is leading that class. The Lim Mo, number 87, Nitro-sponsored GDL Racing Porsche is in second in class, currently 8 seconds further back. And Aoki and Urata have moved up into position 3 in that bright blue Delango Racing Lamborghini Gallardo.
So the pit lane open, or the pit window open, will be at 16:04.
Hiroshi Hamaguchi still sitting behind the wheel of the number 55 car. As we say, winner of round 3 of the championship this year in front of his home fans at Okayama. Well, that's a big dive across to the braking mark by Frank Yu. In fact, he's probably gone a little bit offline there. No,
He's trying to defend as best he can. He's been under pressure for the last couple of laps. He's doing a great job, actually, but he's having to really fight to stay in that position at the moment.
Former two-time race winner here at Sepang, early in his career in GT Asia, driving a Ginetta G50 back a number of years ago. He took his first win in the GT Asia series right here at Sepang, and won 12 months ago with alongside Stefan Mucker in the Craft Bamboo Racing Aston Martin. So experienced driver, has had a bit of bad luck over the last 12 to 18 months, unfortunately for him, being in position at the front of the field a number of times, but little niggling issues, of course, cost the team a better result, and certainly that cost him any chance of running for the championship at the final round last year at Macau, where we saw Mok Wing Sun, who's a past winner at Macau in the GT Asia class, go head-to-head with rookie Anthony Liu. And whilst Anthony Liu was the comfortable standout on his debut at Macau, which was an amazing performance, his first place finish and Mok's second place finish wasn't enough to give the Chinese driver enough points to pass the Singapore-based driver, the multiple champion of the series, and take that position away in the championship. Now there's Dylan Dedali. We were talking about him, the number 20 car, driving for the Golf Racing JP team. Had gearbox problems yesterday, made a gearbox change overnight, and it's good to see that car running along there in this championship hunt too. So Hisashi Kuni, who drives alongside him, is a regular in this team. He will take over the reins of the car, and hopefully, from their perspective, the ongoing lead of the GTM class as we head into the second of the 4 stints, or segments rather, of this 3-hour race here at Sepang.
Very leaders, and now under big pressure at the front, Daryl O'Young, Carlo Van Dam looking to take the lead of this race here and try to hand over the start of the second stint from the lead. And O'Young definitely under big pressure now. Out of turn 4. And this is Carlo Van Dam's plan to try and take this first stint. And he was being cagey about who was going to drive the car, but it's fairly obvious now. We are approximately 14 minutes away from the pit window opening for the first changeover. It will be a 5-minute changeover. Slightly wide there. But each of the cars, there is some success time added on from the previous round. 12 seconds, 10 seconds, and down. But each car has to be 5 minutes at least. Now, you don't need that graphic to tell you how close it is between them. And already Carlo flashing the lights, and Daryl won't like that much. 2 very experienced drivers, one from Hong Kong, The other, of course, the Dutchman, who has become pretty much a Japanese driver in many ways. Like Richard Lyons, has spent a lot of time as Carlo Van Dam in Asia. Formula 3, former champion of Japan, and a very accomplished GT driver. And this, the battle for the lead. It may be early, but Carlo wants past. They come onto the straight again. Daryl O'Young will defend that position. Last time out, Daryl O'Young did a 2:08.4. Let's have a look at it this time, 2:08.9. Slightly quicker from Van Dam, but you can see how close they are. Will he make a dive up the inside? He looks to do it. Here comes Carlo Van Dam. Turn 1, Sepang. The VLT car, the number 99, Aston Martin, holding on for dear life at the front there. Daryl won't like this because he knows it's a long race and he doesn't need to get into a sprint race battle. You can see him going over the dust and the dirt over the rumple strips. Not what he wants at all at this stage, because he wants to hold off Carlo Van Dam, and he may just decide, look mate, if you want it, go for it, because I don't need to waste my time battling with you, but there's a long way to go. Having said that, they both want the lead of this race. Bouncing out of the exit of turn 4, lost a little bit of drive there. Carlo looks to take another look at him at 5 through 6. Next opportunity, the obvious one anyway, is at 9. Both taking very wide turns through there. Into the double apex, 8. And now a mini straight down towards the tight left-hander at uphill to 9. Great racing. It's Ferrari versus the Aston Martin that's led this race from the start, from the get-go, the pole man. It's going to be a very interesting race. And of course, Daniel Lloyd will take over from Daryl O'Young after this stint. And you've got to argue that Lloyd will probably be quicker than the Thai counterpart for the Singer team. That said, he's been driving very well, has Todd Biddy. And again, Carlo Van Dam tries to build on that lead. Rizzo still holding on to 3rd place. Kato and Wee in 4th. Sauer still 5th, then Tappy, who has been one of the quickest men on track in the last few laps, 2:08.7 last time out. He was that much quicker than Angt and De Silva. Collado and Mock up to 8 now, starting 10. They come across the line again. And look at Carlo, intimidating. Can't get past. This is good driving from Daryl. He's not succumbing to it, although now's the chance. Here comes the Ferrari, but good defensive driving from O'Young. Holds the position at 2. Side by side as they head up 2-3. Wow, this is like sprint racing. You wouldn't believe it was an endurance race. And great stuff from Daryl O'Young. Up to turn 4. This is the obvious overtaking. He flashes the lights. He says he wants through. And Daryl says, flash all you like. I'm in a VLT, mate. And again, he loses drive out of 4. He keeps making that mistake, this Daryl, and looks maybe he's going to pay for it this time. But what great racing so early on in this race between the pair of them.
Well, this is the best racing, I think, Daryl O'Young, well, the best race Daryl O'Young's put in all year. He's been under a little bit of pressure, and certainly Jonathan Ventus seems this year to have been the standout in that car. We saw, in fact, in qualifying that Daniel was quicker than Daryl O'Young during his stint. So a little bit of pressure for the veteran. We can call him a veteran. He's been doing this a long time, but Carlo Van Dam will be trying to take any opportunity he can to put him under pressure.
He's trying to intimidate him. It's not working.
Absolutely, you can see
What have you
that.
learned?
After I catch my breath, having run the full length of pit lane, I can tell you that the...
Hey, mate, listen, I'll pull out. If you want to rest, I'll take the pull out.
The number 55 car broke a wishbone. The team actually replaced it in next to record time. I wondered where it was. I asked them, where is it? What are you doing with it? Well, it's back out on the track. We've done it already.
Oh,
so
I see.
They think it might have been a curb. It may have been just a...
But it was on their own volition. There wasn't a crash or
No,
anything.
not that they're aware of. So Andrea Caldarelli said it was disappointing. They were doing a good job.
Well, listen, you catch your breath, because I am out of breath watching this race at the front, because now the leaders are coming up on back markers. And if somebody else has spun there, back into the last corner. And again, Carlo Van Dam looking for a way past. The Audi just getting out of the R8 just getting out of the way as they come down the main straight. The leaders of this race getting closer and closer to the end of the first stint. Here comes Carlo Van Dam and the Singer Ferrari 458. Side by side into the first turn and into the lead goes Carlo Van Dam for the first time. The pole man loses out, and Darrell O'Young will have to settle for second for now. Will he try to fight back? I doubt it. I think he'll try to stay with him, but I don't think there's any point in having a massive fight at this point. It's so close to the open window now, but Carlo Van Dam now will really put the hammer down. It's the second McLaren. So both McLarens out early on. The 5 of Caldarelli and Wu also being dragged out now. No, that's the 55 that's back out on track, the one that's just been fixed.
That's frustration for Hiroshi Yamaguchi and Antonio Luzzi. They were, they were potential podium place getters here this weekend. So there's clearly some bigger issue you would expect for Hiroshi, who's very experienced around this circuit. He's won a round of GT Asia Series here at Sepang. To see him off the circuit is very interesting. Now, this race is good. The reason we were surmising that perhaps it was Piti Bhirombhakdi that started the car and not Carlo Van Dam was the pace that the 99 Aston Martin was showing. It's interesting, even the Aston Martin teams themselves said they were surprised at how much quicker, and it was always the honest Richard Lyons that was telling me this, that they were surprised that they were so close to the Ferraris. They expected the Ferraris were going to have too big an advantage. As we've seen in past years, they've won 11 of 20 rounds here in the GT Asia Series, plus a multitude of Sepang 12-hour races. They really are the standout car. It suits them, this 5.543 15-turn Sepang circuit. So this is a nice result. It's great to see them right in the mix. And, of course, there's a championship on the line. That's enough to motivate anybody, and it seems it's really done just that to Darrell O'Young, who's there in position number 2. Fight merging further back.
Yes, a fight for third place, a fight for first and second before the end of this first stint. And I wonder, with back markers also coming up, whether there'll be a little bit more shenanigans between the top two. But Rizzo under pressure in third position now in this first stint.
It's not Davide Rizzo.
It is Anthony Liu.
It is Anthony Liu according to the sheet in front of me. See, they've got you, haven't they?
They got me on the grid.
They set you up on the grid.
They did, actually. I was set up like a kipper. Perfectly so, though. You know, why not use the pit reporter to effectively try to destabilise the tactics? Oh, talking of destabilising, the 22 goes round. But hey, power to them. Good for them.
Well, they're very closely matched on performance, so it really didn't matter which one of those drivers started. And I think they're having a lend of a year, only the new boys, so they're just giving a bit of a run down to the water cooler.
All right, I learned.
Yeah, you've got that one.
I don't mind. Honestly, I think it's great.
Well, it is, and it makes it interesting on a strategic front too, as to who's going to start the race. As we said before the race, you heard it too. Up and down pit lane, the pros are starting, the pros are starting, the pros are starting.
Well, Rizzo said it. I'm starting the race.
Well, there you go. See? You've just supported him.
Here we go then. We're getting closer and closer to the first pit stop. Remember, both the drivers have to take equal stints, and tactics are going to be coming into play for sure. As now we go through the back markers, it's going to be an interesting close to this first stint. We're about 4 minutes away from the pit window opening. Now you have 10 minutes.
You have 10 minutes. You can pit at the start of that window as soon as it opens at minute 0 essentially in that window, or you can pit right at the very end, but you have to have gone into pit lane to start your stop before the pit window closes. Otherwise you're going to be facing a drive-through penalty. So it's up to them when they want to do that. So there's a variation of 10 minutes where you can pit your AM driver early or run your pro driver late, and then just equal things up from there. So this battle a little bit further back in the pack between Dominic Ange and Weng Sun is really heating up again. You see the Ferrari using plenty of its rubber, a little bit aggressive potentially Mock on the throttle, but the reality is he knows during his compulsory stop, and I'd guarantee you that'll be one of the cars that'll be in very early in the pit window. He's going to get 4 fresh Michelin boots on that car for the stint when they send James Collado out. So they're not really thinking about tyre conservation. Forget about that. Let's just go hard. So he's clearly got the car under him. He wants to make that move and get past the Nexus Ferrari to take the position away and hand the car to James Collado a little bit further up the order.
A lot of traffic here, and yep, sure he goes high and wide at the last turn, does Mock. Trying to get past, surely he'll make an attempt now as he gets the drive. And nothing between them though, but Mock definitely quicker. Jinx out now. The first turn, of course, a right-hander, so in order to make it stick, you've got to be very quick around the first part of turn 1 to get the position for the inside of turn 2, but I don't think he's done it. No, he hasn't.
So we'll take a quick look at the order before the pit window opens, because things will certainly start to change once it has done, and driver combinations are different on the exit of the pit lane. You see Carlo Van Dam leading the field in the number 11 TP12 Racing Ferrari 458. Immediately behind him is Darryl O'Young, who led much of the opening stanza of this race in the 99 VLT Kraft Bamboo Racing Aston Martin. Anthony Liu, we've since discovered, has started the number 37 BBT Team Ferrari, the red and yellow car. Immediately behind him, I believe that's Kato, who started the second of the Clearwater Racing cars, the number 12 car run by Richie Wee. Then it's Kitasawa in the number 8 Bentley Continental, is holding down position number 4. Immediately behind him, Duncan Tappy in the identical Bentley Continental, the number 77 JV Global car. Position 7, Dominic Ange, we saw him on screen just a second ago. The LKM Porsche has stopped out on circuit. They were running around towards the tail of the GT3 class field. It's disappointment for them, because they're fantastic supporters of the sport. And that's the Jerry Wang GTM points leading Audi that ran very, very deep further back there. He may have a bit of a problem. He's really dropped his pace off as he's coming through to turn number 14. So wonder whether there's issues. The two Bentleys you can see on screen. Position number 8, of course, is Mock in the number 1, the reigning champion in the number 1 Clearwater Racing Ferrari. Position number 9 is Frank Yu in the number 88 Interrush, the light blue Aston Martin Vantage for Kraft Bamboo Racing. Then it's Ronald Wu doing a great job on his debut for the Triple F Racing team by ACM McLaren operation. The car he shares with Andrea Caldarelli, position number 10. Jeffrey Lee, the J-Fly Racing team boss, in the number 7 Bentley Continental, holds down position number 11. Then Zen Lowe in the number 86 OD Racing Lamborghini Gallardo, he shares with Ferris Fowsey, position number 12. Rod Salmon, the Australian, a two-time winner of the Bathurst 12 Hour, holds down position number 13 in the 3rd of the Triple F Racing team McLarens. And it's Dylan Durdali leading the GTM class field in the number 20 JP Racing, the Golf entry from Japan. Car number 34, Takuma Aoki and Kenny Rata. And now up to position 2, you just see it disappear through the front of the screen, about to go a lap down now to Carlo Van Dam. Takuma Aoki is behind the wheel of that car. And then there's the Lim Mo number 87 Porsche in position number 3 in the GTM class, position 16 overall. And it's the Lim Farmer, the second car in the Nitro supported GDL Racing Porsche operation, is position number 4. And the Maury Makino number 22 Porsche, that's the GT3R, GT3 car of the Golf Racing JP operation, holding down position number 18. So the pit window essentially has opened. We're at the 40-minute mark of this race. So drivers will start to come into pit lane. We should imagine that the car that's leading, the number 11 car, will continue on well into the pit window, and he will close down a little bit further on. Darryl O'Young has clearly decided that he will continue too. Kato is also continuing. Anthony Liu's pace is good enough to see him continue on. Now it's the next car on. It's Kitasawa. He too will continue on. So the top 5 aren't taking the advantage of diving into pit lane. Duncan Tappy too will continue on. Now the Nitro cars, one of the Nitro cars has gone into pit lane. So we see the 87 car on screen. So that was clearly the number 67 car with Liam Lim has dived into pit lane. He will hand over to Lawrence Farmer, the Hong Kong driver, who will take the reins of that car for the second stint in this 4-stint race. You can see the 67 car coming into pit lane. Porsche Cup car, they will make their changes, and they've got the 5-minute minimum time to do that. Mock, as we predicted, has also pitted. So has Frank Yu. Ronald Wu has also come into pit lane as soon as the window has opened. They'll hand over to James Collado, Richard Lyons and Andrea Caldarelli. Those cars will be particularly fast. Now you can see it's getting dark. I nipped down to pit lane just earlier to find out what's going on. Johnny's just gone down there to see what the drivers think of the conditions, but it's certainly got darker, and they are telling me that there is rain threatening. That said, there's been rain threatening at Sepang Circuit all this week, and so far, apart from a bit of a light display and a few showers last night, it has been pretty fine for most of the weekend. Very humid, of course, and that has had a rather large impact on the turbocharged cars. But conditions behind the wheel too are very hot. Some of these cars, like the number 1 Clearwater entry, do have air conditioning. It was a regulation in Europe a number of years ago that the cars for the amateur drivers, the gentleman drivers, did have air conditioning to make sure that they were still fresh in the difficult conditions. But many of these cars are reaching beyond 60 degrees centigrade in the cabin. Now that's it's pretty hot by any stretch of the imagination. So a number of them are running cool suits. They run dry ice boxes that pump cold air around their body, certainly the upper body. Some of them run cool air ducts into their helmets to provide the old noggin with a little bit of cool air. Now that looked like it was the number 37 car, has in fact hit pit lane. So that was the 3rd place car of Davido Rizzo and Anthony Liu. Anthony Liu will hit pit lane. Now these guys are no strangers to endurance racing. They've competed in the Asian Le Mans series in the past, and most of the length of those races were 3 hours. So they have done these stints before. They prefer the sprint race length. They don't enjoy as much the longer races, but certainly they'll be right in it, and they're certainly both fit enough to carry their pace through the end of this race. So Rizzo and Liu are in the pits. So too now Kitasawa to hand over to Adderley Fong, the 2-time race winners so far in the 2015 championship. They are also now into pit lane. We still see the lights lit up on the number 1 car, the 88 car, the 5 car, the 7 car of Jeffrey Lee and Andy Merrick are in pit lane. You can see a whole feast of cars, and they're not going anywhere in any real hurry. They have a minimum 5-minute stop. They must refuel the car. They need to do that safely. They don't need to change the 4 tyres, but they have the opportunity to. Michelin have given them fresh tyres for every single stint for this weekend. They will change to the compulsory stop. So Johnny's got his way down to pit lane. We'll be down to him shortly and find out just how the drivers feel. Certainly the opening stanza of this race has been very interesting. That is Takuma Aoki. He has run off the circuit, and he will rejoin. So I don't believe he has changed over yet to Kenya Rada. It could have been a stop, but certainly it doesn't seem to show that just yet. So Takuma Aoki did make the opening stint. So a little bit more time to take the paralysed driver out of the car. So that is the one team in the field that's capable of being able to take the advantage of being able to do a driver change whilst the team remove the driver from the car. Every other instance, the driver must exit the car before they do the fuel and tyres. So that is the number 8 Bentley Continental. As we see, the number 99 car has now rejoined. And Daniel Lloyd, who set the top time in the second qualifying session and helped put Darryl O'Young on pole position in this race. He is back out of the pits and running at the front of this field, shown in position number 2. But Richie Wee, it looks like, may have taken over the reins of that car, and he's looking very, very racing. We've seen Richie Wee do a fantastic job over the last 18 months. Did a lot of racing 20-odd years ago, stepped out of the car for quite some time. And yes, that is in fact Richie Wee now behind the wheel of the number 12 Clearwater Racing car. Rookie of the year last year. A number of people said, how can a bloke who raced 20 years ago be Rookie of the Year? Because he'd been out of racing for 18 years, stepped into a Ferrari 458 GT3 and actually won 2 rounds of the 2014 championship on his debut in GT competition. So no slouch, and he's showing that as he's putting all sorts of pressure on England's Daniel Lloyd, the replacement driver for the injured Jonathan Venter, the championship points leader, and a fellow Aston Martin Academy driver. So he's getting an initiation of fire from Rocket Richie, and we're still waiting to hear from Johnny down there in pit lane. He will be catching up with some of these drivers who I'm sure are going to be looking first of all to catch their breath, have a quick cool drink and get themselves organised. So Van Dam and Petty Birrenbakti behind the wheel now is shown as the leader of the race. 21 laps in, 46 minutes down. You can see visibly now how dark it is getting as Richie Weed dives up the inside of Daniel Lloyd and takes position 2 away from the young English driver. In fact, that was Darryl O'Young. So it's unusual. It's the end of the pit window. Sorry, I've messed my instructions up as to how that was playing out. So that's Darryl O'Young making his compulsory stop at the end of the pit window to hand over to the young Englishman, Daniel Lloyd. Now, what's interesting here is this is where it does get a little bit messy. So you'll excuse the odd mix-up that may happen during the course of the race. Because we have this pit window, drivers circulate, a 5-minute stop does mean that cars will go up to 2 laps down. Things will get a little complicated until the pit windows are all closed. Every team has completed their compulsory stop, and we can actually work out the order of where drivers are. We saw some time ago, in fact 5 minutes ago, the number 37 BBT Ferrari make their pit entry. Now, of course, they're making their pit exit. So that's just how long the stops take. Now, the 37 car is shown as position number 8. So all the drivers now around him are making their compulsory stop. There's only just over a minute left in this pit window for all the drivers to make their compulsory stop. The number 11 car with Carlo Van Dam is shown now as the leader, and there's Johnny down in pit lane. Looks like he might have something to tell us down here, Johnny.
Yeah, I'm down here, and I just want to have a quick word. Paddy, real quick, just want to see how the pit stops and the first stint went for Bentley.
Yeah, we're a little bit slow. The tyres got a bit hot, but yeah, we made adjustments for this one, and clouds come over, so...
I'm going to say, are you expecting rain?
Always expect rain.
I'm going to say, Paddy Roberts has been doing this job for about 25 years here in Asia. If anybody knows it's going to rain, it's him. Anyway, nice and clean by the Bentley boys, doing a good job. Obviously, they've got some work to do. Adelaide Fong having problems before in qualifying, so they're kind of behind the 8 ball a little bit, but they're going to have to work it up a bit. Just seen the 27 car come in, Ferrari doing their bit. I'm just trying to see how the driver, just seen Keta Sauer. Keta, I'm just going to see if I can get a word with Keta Sauer, who's just come in from Bentley, and obviously the Japanese driver who took Bentley to their first win in the series a couple of races ago. He's just finished the first stint, and we'll get a sort of an interesting insight into just what the conditions are like out there. He's coming out. Keta, obviously you just finished the first stint. How was it? How are the conditions, first of all?
The condition of the track temperature is less than, I guess, but still hot. But my start was really good, and I did a position up for the 4 beginning, first 2 laps. But after that, my pace was not so good, and also I had a worry about the tire management to the end, because still hot condition makes the tire injured a lot. So I already start to consider for my stint, the last 5 laps, to better as possible. But the car is okay. But I feel the understeer entry the corner getting worse, and also after that the snap oversteering at the exit is also getting worse. So last 5 laps is incredible. I had to control the car, to make the car in the track.
So, I don't know about the weather, about what Bentley is saying, but it looks okay over this way, but over this way, it's typical Sepang, you never know.
Yeah, you know, here is a Sepang, so the high chance to come raining after that. So, still don't know yet, everyone. So, we just do it.
Gambate. So those are the words of Keta Sauer saying, obviously, management of the tyres is a bit of a problem, and it could be for all the guys out there. Pit stops continuing throughout the grid. Let's go a little further down and see if we can talk to the Singer team, because they've just come in, and I can see Carlo Van Dam, and let's see if I have a quick word. How was your stint?
Good fun.
Yeah?
I
thought you were going to go second.
Yeah, going from P6 to first is the maximum I could do. I pulled a nice gap. Now it's up to PT, but car feels good. We've been quick all weekend, so we're looking all right. It's going to be tough.
Was it frustrating behind Darryl, because he wasn't too quick to let you by, was he?
Well, that's racing.
Exactly.
There's some, because of the combination, some slower drivers start in the front, but no problem. I did my job.
What have you got to pass on to Pity in terms of the conditions and in terms of how the car's handling?
That the car is great, and just copy-paste what I did.
Okay, fair enough. Copy paste. Copy paste from Carlo Van Dam. It's as easy as that. Back to you, Sean.
I think I'll take a leaf out of that and do a copy paste for Jonathan Green, who's been doing a great job all this weekend. It's nice to be able to get down to pit lane and actually talk to some of these drivers about what exactly has played out. But clearly the heat is playing a big role here and the humidity is climbing. The weather is starting to close in. So whether it rains or not, we don't know. Very, very unpredictable here at Sepang. It may rain nearby. It may not rain at all. It may just threaten over the course of the remainder of this race, which is now set. The clock's on 2 minutes and 7, or 2 hours 7 rather, left in this race. So still shown as position number 1 is the number 11 car. That may change. They're shown a lap up on a number of cars which are now starting to unlap themselves. So as we said, you've got to wait until the end of this pit window. Once it's closed, every car has cycled through, made their compulsory stop, done a driver change, done their fuel, done their tyres, and circulated back out on track for a lap. Then we can give you an accurate reading as to exactly who is going to be leading this race. Makes it interesting, makes it a little confusing from our position on occasion, but certainly makes it interesting and mixes the racing up. Certainly one thing that GT3 competition has done worldwide, using a system called balancer performance, is to make the performance of these widely varying cars very, very similar on track, so that you are seeing races between Ferrari, Aston Martin, Lamborghini, Porsche, Audi, Bentley, McLaren, you name it. They're all very closely matched, ultimately on performance, based on a balance of performance that is set ultimately in Europe and modified for different regions. There are slight modifications to things like ride height and weight to some of the cars here in the GT Asia series that may be a little bit different to some of the European series, because the conditions can be very, very different. You're not going to see conditions like this at Monza or Hockenheim, you would hope. It's certainly very, very hot, very, very threatening weather-wise, and the humidity is quite difficult to cope with, both down in pit lane and behind the wheel of these cars. So there you see, still classified as the race leader, shown 23 laps down. Piti Bhirombhakdi will take the field back out. Now you see how this has unfolded. There's the 3 Ferraris. This will be 1, 2, 3 on track. So the number 37 car, Davide Rizzo, now behind the wheel, has just taken over position number 2. Richie Wee is now behind the wheel of the number 12 car. We were talking him up just earlier, but that was in fact Hiroki Kato, the Japanese driver. Very good experience in the circuits of Asia, who was still behind the wheel doing battle, of course, with Darryl O'Young. So it is Piti Bhirombhakdi, the winner of round 5 of the championship at Fuji in fairly changeable conditions. Drove very, very well that entire weekend and was right in the position to be battling towards the front of the field. In fact, so good has he been running this year. He's actually classified 3rd in this championship. 52 points, just 11 points off the championship lead. Double points, remember, here this weekend. So we're seeing the 2 Golf Racing JP cars, very different. GTM class car at the front, a 991 Porsche Cup car, and a full GT3 spec, albeit a 2011 car. GT3R Porsche immediately behind. So that is the 20 and 22 cars. So the number 20 car, position number 14 overall, and the car it's battling for the GTM class points lead is immediately in front. Now that's Australian Warren Luff. Very, very talented driver in an Audi R8, very, very talented driver, former V8 supercar driver, has been a race winner in the past in these levels of cars, or these styles of cars, a front runner at the Bathurst 12 Hour, driving alongside Craig Lowndes, a V8 supercar veteran in Australia, has a lot of experience, Warren Luff, and he has also been a part of the Craft Bamboo team in recent years, raced with Frank Yu during the opening round of the 2014 season in South Korea. He will be doing his level best to ensure that Jerry Wang continues to lead that GTM class points table into this race. We saw Andrea Caldarelli on screen, a big part of the Triple F racing team by ACM operation, the McLaren team. It's just taken over from Ron Wu. Currently they are shown in position number 11. Now here we have the early race leader now with the young Englishman, Daniel Lloyd, behind the wheel. He will be taking his first steps in the GT Asia Series on competition front. Now here we see the battle between Davide Rizzo and Todd Petty for the lead of this race. is really closed in. So that earlier stop by Anthony Liu has given Davide Rizzo the chance to get things up to speed, up to temperature. He's got the tyres up to temperature. He's got himself up to speed. He's got his eye in, and he's going to make an assault on the outright lead of this race. And certainly as the winner of the opening round of the championship in South Korea, they are well placed to be right in this championship and only a handful of points off the championship points leaders. So a double points win here for the BBT team would be right up their alley and put them right back into this title race.
All systems go down in the pit lane. Just talked to a few of the guys, as you saw, but spoke to Clearwater Racing. No problems for them. Steady as you go. Harsh, team manager, quietly happy that, the whole thing with an endurance race is to avoid drama at all costs. But we've got some drama going on here right now, for sure, between the leaders. I love the fact that even though it's endurance racing, they're willing to put the cars on the line and race hard, as we see here. Comes to 37 and pushing Birenbakhti wide there and pushing him almost out of the way, but not physically, just with intimidation. And that's how he got the lead. Great stuff. Good driving by both of them, but the Singer car having to relinquish the lead.
Look who's raging up there in fourth position. We're talking about young Daniel Lloyd. He's set pole position in the second qualifier. Oh, that was very squirrely in, under brakes into turn 15 for Davide Rizzo. Got it very sideways, deep under brakes, so he obviously wanted to protect that position, but probably went in a little bit too hard on the rubber. Now that may have an effect. He's done that early in the stint on these tyres, so he has got another 30 to 40 minutes on those tyres. Must be very careful he's not punishing them too badly this early in the stint. So it's going to be interesting. He's certainly hard on the throttle there. He's looking to try and open up an advantage when he hands that car back to Anthony Liu. Give them the opportunity to really push on in this next stint. It'll be interesting to see how Anthony Liu's recovered after that first stint, because the one thing I could gather out of the discussions you had down in pit lane is a number of these drivers are suffering pretty badly.
Well, you heard from Kurosawa, tyre management is definitely going to be an issue. So is physical management. I spoke to Andy Byron this morning, and he reckons that the final 40 minutes of this race could prove to be crucial for one of a couple of reasons. Tyre management being one. Obviously, wear on the car itself, that the cars can make it. But also just physically, the energy sack for those who are not used to perhaps doing as long a race as this in this kind of heat. Some guys have the heat suits, obviously. Some have air conditioning, some others don't. And it's going to be a big, long, tough last 40 minutes. And that's when mistakes physically can be made. All of these guys are world-class drivers. But I think that's when the tension comes in. You get it towards the end of the race, and mistakes can be made. The two Golf cars on track together.
They've been having a good stoush between the GTM class car and the GT3 class car. It's the oldest GT3 class car in the field. The big differences these, if you look at the two of them, is predominantly aerodynamics. You can see a much narrower track and physical stance of the 991 Cup car versus the GT3 car, the full-spec FIA GT3 car immediately behind it. Car number 15, black and white diagonal flag. Okay, track limits, so it might
pushing
be
over the track limits, yeah.
Absolutely. So now it'll be interesting to
That's
see
a
whether
warning,
that's for young Australian Nathan Antunes, who's actually the Australian GT Championship points leader, or the man who owns his car in Australia, his co-driver, two-time Bathurst 12-hour champion, Rod Salmon. So it'll be interesting to see which one of those drivers is the one that's being pushed. And you see the lap time, suddenly that car's into the low 208s. So that car will start to work its way into contention. So the race leaders have just gone around and completed 26 laps, 207.3. It's the last lap round for Davide Rizzo. The leader is now nearly 4 seconds up on Piti Birenbakhti. So he'll be keen to keep pushing it. 209.6 last time, so 2.3 seconds was dropped off by Birenbakhti. But the fact that he's doing a sub 210 this early in the race, in these conditions, is probably about where the team want him to be. It'll be around the 208, 209, 210 for the AM drivers, certainly in the 209, 210 for a number of them. The pros you would expect will be into the 206s, 207s. And we're talking pros, there's one of them on screen now, James Collado. He'll be working his way up through the order. Currently shown position number 6. The next driver in front of him is young Adley Fong, a two-time winner so far this year. Now number 7, car number 7. The J-Fly Racing Bentley Continental has also been given the black and white flag.
Now, interestingly enough, I noticed the windscreen wipers went on there, for a moment anyway, and I saw the wind pick up. When I was in pit lane, there was no sign of any particular weather coming in anytime soon, but that's the beauty, or that's the excitement. See that windscreen wipers going on there again, just a quick wipe, there you go. Intermittent, but nothing special. We'll get the satellite read soon, but I noticed the palm trees in the background starting to blow up a little bit. And we've had this kind of weather in practice where it wasn't wet enough to make any difference to track time in terms of lap times, but as you can see, wipers are on. So could be some weather coming in very quickly. And it can change very quickly here at Sepang, and that is another thing we've got to watch out.
Well, look at how heavy it is, just instantly. There it was. When you said wind, I looked outside the window, you can see it come through, but you can see just visibly how much water's on the track.
But nothing on the front here.
Yeah, well, yes, it's really starting to come down quite heavily now. So what do the teams do? Then the next thing is, you can't predict what happens in Sepang. It could be gone as quickly as it's arrived. It may not actually settle on the track long enough in this heat to actually create any real problems for the drivers. So the engineers have to work this out. They have to judge what the drivers say, but also you don't want to make a pit stop outside the pit window because that's going to add on. You still have to make your stop in the compulsory pit window. We're still another 20 odd minutes away from the next pit window opening. So it's going to make it very interesting.
Could you come in because of the weather if it was really wet and you needed the tyres? Could you come in, or would you get a penalty for coming in?
No, you still have to make a compulsory stop within the compulsory pit stop window.
So you are on slicks in a Bentley as though you were on roller skates and the biggest guy in the world?
Absolutely.
Oh, my word.
Oh, well, it's what it make for interesting viewing. I love it. At the end of the day, that's why we're here, because you can see visibly just how much rain is over at the back of the circuit.
One car
it's
off
claimed
already.
its first victim. So Sashi Cooney will have taken over from Dylan Durdali. They were leading the GTM class field. So you want to push, you want to stay out there, you don't want to stop, but there'll come a point where you don't want to be battling for position
Look
like
how
that.
wet it is at 6 and 7. Yeah, well, they are at 6s and 7s at the moment because as they head down to 9, the rain is all at the back of the circuit, quite literally. The front of the circuit nowhere near as damp. It is pouring down now into 9, and now treacherous conditions here. The VLT car just tiptoeing its way as cars pulled out of the gravel. Safety car is out.
Okay, there you go. That's interesting. So what an initiation of fire for the young Englishman who's taken over the number 99 car that was leading the opening legs in this race. He set pole. We spoke to him after he got pole position, Daniel Lloyd. He said, this is just all surreal. A week or so ago, I didn't know I was going to be here doing this, and now I'm on pole position. We're starting from the front row of the race. He's battling in the wet. He's in a car that he does know. He of course, does laps in Blanc paint in an Aston Martin, so he knows how these cars work, but he's in the position where he has to battle all these new things all at once. As we see Adrian De Silva in, they've made the decision to pit outside the window and change to wet weather tyres. What's the penalty? Well, the penalty is they still have to pit during the compulsory pit stop window, but you want to be at the compulsory pit in the next compulsory pit stop window, don't you? You don't want to have spun off because you have just tiptoed around on a set of
Wet tyre change
slicks.
permitted. Safety car deployed. As soon as the safety car's out, they can't come in.
As you can see, drivers all diving now into pit lane. The rain's significantly heavy enough to actually make the decision to make that change. Now, whether they do decide that this will constitute, well, it certainly can't, because it's down to the driver change also and also fuel window. So they will still need to pit during the compulsory pit stop window. But wet tyre change is permitted. It should not be too much of a penalty if all the drivers come in, all the teams come in, and they make a tyre change, provided they don't lose too much wholesale time. Of course, many of these crews are well versed at making quick tyre changes. They should be able to get the slicks off, get the wets on, control Michelin wet weather tyre, and send the drivers out. Now, it's not Formula One. There aren't multiple compounds of wet weather tyre. It is a wet weather tyre. It is a slick tyre. The S9L Control slick tyre is what they will use in the dry. This is the Control Michelin wet, so they're all the same. There's no advantage or disadvantage. You can see you've got to be a little bit careful on the throttle, even with
the wet weather tyre. Now, of course, the temperature of the wet weather tyre will be cooler, so it needs to get a little bit of temperature up to work to its optimum too, but not too much temperature, because then you start to have some rapid wear. It seems they're having a little bit of a struggle there with the Bentley to get the change across, although that could be the second of the Bentleys. Of course, there's 3 of them here in the Absolute Team Bentley operation, the number 7, the number 8, and the number 77. So it is Davide Rizzo that is continuing to be shown as the leader of this race. The safety car, though, is going to pick up one of the GDL Racing Porsches. It should be at some point, it's just diving now into pit lane. So the car that they will be looking to pick up will be the number 37 red and yellow BBT Ferrari 458 Italia GT3 of Davide Rizzo, who's being shown as the race leader. Second, Todd Petty Birnbachty, who sharing the car with Carlo Van Dam. Birnbachty just diving now into pit lane. You can see that so too is the race leader, Davide Rizzo. So it'll be interesting to see whether some of these drivers do make any change to the car, or whether any of the teams make a change to the car. Predominantly it's just going to be a tyre pressure adjustment, but they will have well and truly set those for the wet weather tyres before they put them on the car, so not too many other changes needed. They may take a water bottle from the team, but they will be needing to ride this out. This may well have dropped the temperature a little bit too, which will make conditions behind the wheel a little bit nicer. So we will see who the safety car picks up once we see Rizzo and Birnbachty return to the circuit. Now, we did see the 27 car made a nice strategy choice, and they were very quickly into pit lane. The pace car is going to let them past. No, it may in fact pick up the 27 car. Now, currently it is shown in position number 13. It has made the stop to make the tyre change. Interestingly, the number 12 car, which is currently shown in position number 2, is behind the 27 car. So yeah, wade the 27 through. It is further back behind, so that will rejoin down the order. So essentially you would say that Richie Wee may have taken over position number 1 with the car into pit lane. Certainly the safety car seems to have picked the number 12 car up. Immediately behind him is Richard Lyons. He'll be looking to make up a big difference. Very experienced driver, the Ulsterman. Drives in Super GT. He's driven a variety of GT cars over the years. Very, very experienced driver on all the Asian circuits. We see it every time he steps behind the wheel of the number 88 into Rush Aston Martin. It's invariably at the top of the timesheets. Been very unlucky so far this year. Just little issues have cost the team, and they certainly should be riding this title hunt, and a good result here for them this weekend could put the lead Craft Bamboo car right in the championship fight again, alongside the second car, the number 99 VLT car, which is leading the championship points at this stage, alongside, of course, the number 8 Bentley Continental of Adley Fong and Keita Sawa. So we will see after the safety car crosses the start-finish line a revised order, and see when the officials think that they're happy to get everybody back up to speed. So this allows some of the teams to make their stop. As we see, that's one of the Triple F Racing McLarens perhaps looking to try and get itself back onto the back of the pack, because the safety car in the wrong position right now could see you, if you're not careful, go a lap down, and nobody wants to do that. So essentially, the race officials will have decided, the race director will have decided to bring the safety car up to allow the teams into pit lane without putting too much pressure on to have to effect the change very, very quickly. The conditions were getting very, very slippery, so rather than force you back into pit lane as quickly as you can possibly go and potentially put yourself at risk of spinning off the circuit, we'll slow everything up, give you time to get in and make that change and rejoin the field. That will make things a little bit safer. We still have an hour and 48 minutes to go in this inaugural 3-hour race for the GT Asia Series. Very interesting start. We saw Darrell Young get away very nicely, but ultimately heading into the compulsory pit stop, Carlo Van Dam fired through from 6th on the grid to take the position away. So it was a great start to the race. Now we are looking at weather, and looks like we're heading down to Johnny Green down in pit lane to see how things are playing out with the teams.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting. The rain is continuing to pour down, and well, when it's raining like this, you've got to turn to another Englishman. Duncan Tappy, how the hell are you, mate? How was your stint?
Pretty good from my side. A bit of a steady start. I just didn't want to get caught up. There was a mixture of pros and amateurs, so I just played it safe really, and probably a bit too safe. Woke up a bit in turn 2 and then started to make my way forward, and I think we were 4th or 5th. I think, yeah, 4th or 3rd when we came in. So solid, nice overtaking. Just had to do some pretty late braking manoeuvres on the Ferraris because they're like rocket ship down the straight.
We're under safety at the moment, and as you can see, the conditions aren't improving. It's still drizzling, it's still wet. How does this affect your strategy? I mean, what have you talked amongst the team about what to do next?
Well, we kind of knew that this weather was on its way. It was just a matter of what time, really. But again, I think the strategy from our side with Jackie is to keep it on the circuit, stay out of trouble, try and put into practice what I've tried to help him with over the last couple of months. And yeah, just try and improve every lap. And for me, I'll just give it hell.
I was going to say, it's going to be interesting to see now with this lull, so to speak, because no one can overtake during safety, so the times are going to tick down, and when you guys get back in the car, chances are it's going to dry out. So we're going to see a wet, dry race. We talked to Kitasawa. He was saying that obviously the use of tyre management is going to be a part in dry conditions. How is your scenario in the dry?
If we go on the first stint, we look pretty strong amongst our competitors, and if you look at other Bentleys, my particular stint I think was good. I don't know about other people really, but yeah, we just need to stay out of trouble, keep going forward, and see if we can bring home a half-decent result.
I'll let you get a rest, but there you go. That's the latest from Duncan Tappy and the Bentley team. So I think what we could be seeing here, if the conditions dry out, and as they aren't at the moment, it's still drizzling here. I can see a little bit of blue sky above me, but we ain't going to venture out and ruin our cameras out here in the wet. We're going to stay in the dry for now. But you just heard from Duncan Tappy. What's going to get interesting about this race is as there becomes a drying line, those that are willing to take a risk and maybe push a little harder, and I'm thinking of the professional drivers here, could make the difference to this 3-hour endurance race. Back to you, Sean.
Thanks, Jonathan. I think you're probably right. So safety cars off. We have managed to... Oh, sorry, it's entering the pits at the end of this lap. So the teams that have affected a late change and getting back to the tail of the leaders are really pushing hard. You can hear them in the background just really getting back up to speed to get into line ready for this restart. So that does throw a whole new equation into this race as to when these drivers will be making the change from wets to slicks, and whether they take the risk, and there can be whole time gained by doing that. So it's not over. They've made the halfway mark yet. Getting closer and closer to that second compulsory pit stop window, which will be at 1 hour 25 minutes. So we're about 10 minutes away from that. So can the track dry significantly enough for the teams to take that risk to go onto slick tyres at the next change, or will they do something else? So certainly it's going to be interesting. We see Kato and Wee are classified as the leaders. Lyons and Yu position number 2. Rizzo and Liu position number 3. Carlo Van Dam, Birnbach car position number 4. Darrell Young and Daniel Lloyd. Daniel Lloyd at the wheel. That's the yellow car on screen there. Is in position number 5. Adley Fong is in position number 6. So clearly the safety car has gone off because these guys are now fighting over position. So we are back under green. 1 hour 43 left in this race. And this is the battle for positions number 5. Well, it's further forward than that. That's Carlo Van Dam's car with Pity Birnbach at the wheel. It's now under fire from James Collado, who was position number 7 at the restart. He's now moved himself up behind young Daniel Lloyd. And that was for about position number 4. Further in front of them, you will see the 2 Ferraris. Richard Lyons has now gotten himself himself up into position number 2, according to the timing monitor. Richard Wee is the leader of this race in the number 12 Clearwater Racing car, the sister car to the car on screen. It's now showing Richard Wee's up to position number 2, and Richard Lyons is now in position number 3. So again, we'll wait for the timing monitor to give us the full picture of what has unfolded since the restart. And it's actually showing now that Davide Rizzo and Anthony Liu, Davide Rizzo behind the wheel, number 37 BBT Ferrari, which we saw make that passing move for the lead, is in fact the race lead. And Richie Wee is shown in position number 2, 10 seconds further back. He has taken, it seems, Richard Lyons for position. So the Ulsterman must have had an issue on that last lap, as we see another battle for position. That's James Collado looking to take the position away, going around the outside of the young Englishman Daniel Lloyd going into turn 2. So that may be a position change. Here we see the second place car. Now, they're the 2 cars we were talking about. That's Richard Wee and Richard Lyons on screen, the front 2 in this run. And Johnny, an interesting run down there to pit lane. What are conditions like, and what are we going to expect over the next 10, 15 minutes of this race?
Well, here's what's interesting is the conditions aren't changing. And what I'm seeing is, you heard Duncan say, you know, when it dries out and so on and so forth, but I don't think it is. It's not getting any worse, but it's not drying out. And I think it's going to be a while before, I mean, we've got a long way to go in this race, but an hour 41, I don't see this track ever drying to the point of bone dry again.
Surely they haven't sent Richard Lyons out. No. They did a tyre change. I was going to say they haven't sent him out since. He's actually falling back a little bit. Now he's coming under fire from one of the Porsches. He's driving what we would call a karting line, an off-line line on the circuit, which is the line that well, it's not the optimum race line. What I'm trying to say is not the optimum race line, which gets very slippery when it gets wet. So you actually drive offline for greater grip when the conditions are like this. So he's employing those tactics, but his pace doesn't seem to be really good. And,
unless he's on slick tyres.
Well, that's what I was just wondering, but surely not. It was outside the compulsory pit stop window. That's going to open again in about 5 minutes' time, so you wouldn't take that punt.
Yes, but with the safety car, it makes no difference to the compulsory pit stop. Right? That's the one thing I did check. What we just saw reshuffle makes no difference. They can still come in and do their regular pit stops.
Oh, they have to do the compulsory pit stops within the window, so regardless of whether they have to pit outside of the window in those instances, they still have to make the compulsory pit stop within the window, regardless of the conditions or anything else that happens on track.
I tell you what, I've seen some conditions at Sepang, but these are about as tough as they are, because you've got a very wet track and a lot of rain came down very quickly. I mean, usually you're used to a few hours, but you can see in the pit lane, really, now you can see. Look at them, 4 abreast here as they go across the line.
Richard Lyons is being swamped. Look at him driving right on the inside of the circle in a very dirty line. Maybe he has taken slicks. Maybe they've taken the punt for what will happen if the track starts to dry. He could have a huge advantage.
There's no question that he's not got the pace at the moment. So I think your theory's right. You can see there is a line starting to form, but it's not a dry line yet.
It's an interesting tactic, but it's all about tactics now. The weather throws in a variable. I'm sure the engineers are throwing their hands to the air, and some of their guidebooks completely into the rubbish bin, because this was a strategy I guess they would have had to consider. Jeez, it's getting very tight there back in the mist. It was a strategy that they needed to continue, but you don't know when the rain's going to fall. You can't plan for that. What do we do if it comes at lap 20, 50, 60? What are we going to do? So
I'll say one thing, Sean. Forget the strategy for a minute. This is world-class racing in these conditions. The power that they've got underneath them, wet or dry tyres. This takes real skill to be able to drive in these conditions and get it right and be passing guys. You know, we're in for a doozy. This is fantastic racing. And you're right, it's almost impossible to predict the strategy at this point. And really, it seems to me that most of the guys are sort of going hell-bent for leather and trying to make the most of going as fast as they can. And who dares wins at this point?
Well, it's interesting that the guy on screen, James Collado, 2:21 last time round. Daniel Lloyd at 2:23. Most of the other drivers are the late 2:20s and into the 2:40s. So they're really pushing hard. Now, this is where the advantages come. Davide Rizzo at the front of the field at 2:24. He's now 27 seconds up on second place Richie Wee.
Yeah, it makes things very interesting indeed. And this is going to be a really critical last hour for sure. We've got 1 hour and 38 minutes. We had a big downpour just after the first pit window and first stint stop. we heard from some of the drivers in that stint, they were worried about tyre management because of the dry conditions. Now, though, completely different. And as you can see, the lights flashing on the famous BBT, Billionaire Boys Club. Brilliant stuff.
Oh, they're characters too. They really do love their racing. They've done a bit of endurance racing over the years, certainly here too at Sepang, so they know what to expect. But Davide Rizzo can use this opportunity to really push on. And the drivers behind him haven't even crossed the line to start their lap. In fact, James Collado has just now.
Now crossed the
look
line.
at it, we're talking about James Collado, factory Ferrari driver in the World Endurance Championship.
Yep.
Endurance racing professional under all sorts of conditions. Last time round he did a 2:22. Last time round, how's this for you? Davide Rizzo at 2:24.
Yeah,
now, that's pretty impressive pace, and especially when you've also got young Daniel Lloyd doing a 2:24, and he's into position number 3. Car on screen, Piti Bhirombhakdi, he's not doing a bad job either. Position number 4, and a 2:26 for him last time round. So Carlo Van Dam will be all smiles at the pace that the Thai driver's showing. And that's a nice result for him. Adley Fong now moved into position number 5 at 2:27, probably a little bit slower than we would have expected for the young Hong Kong-based driver. But expect to see that team work their way forward. What's the temperature like down there now? I mean, has it dropped?
It hasn't dropped, actually. It's surprising. You know, usually when the weather comes in, it drops slightly and you get that wind up, but it hasn't really done much. The wind has pushed the rain here, but then kind of left it here, lingering over the airport. And, spin for car number 12.
Position number 2 they were after this restart, but Richard Wee starting to drop back down the order. Rocket Ritchie, the reigning rookie of the year, 2-time race winner last year, just got caught out by the conditions. You can't blame him for that. It's changing lap by lap.
Yeah, I mean, this is, like I said, it's fascinating to watch because it doesn't matter. Like I said, the strategy is almost not out the window, but to drive in these conditions is so tough with this much power beneath you. Blue flags waving. I wonder if they can even see those flags. Down the back straight they come, and you can see the spray and the vision that you've got or not got, so to speak, here in these conditions. Not easy at all. We're back on the front straight now and into turn 1. The McLaren, the number 55, diving into the turn. Lights flashing on the BBT car that leads this race, and he's letting all comers know that he's coming and coming fast. Rizzo crosses the line another 2:24.2.
This will be interesting just to see how much of an inroads that James Collado can make into to this. Oh, now what have we seen here? It looks like the J-Fly car has had a stoppage on the circuit.
And its lights off too, and he's trying to reset it by the looks of things.
Yeah, that's not a great spot to stop on the circuit.
He's got it going again. That was weird. That was like an electronics failure of some sort, because you could see him almost physically going through the reset procedure there. The lights went off, then they started to come back on again, and he basically reset the whole system.
A lot of haze on the circuit too. 2:21 that time around, 2:21.9 for James Collado, 23.9 seconds. The gap between position number 1 and number 2. But
we're going to see just
Lloyd,
how good Collado is now, aren't we?
I think we are, but Daniel Lloyd's certainly learning a lot in these conditions. That's the Australian Warren Luff, the number 29 GTM class Audi R8 of the points leader, Jerry Wang. Jerry's been doing a great job this year. He's very hard on himself when we do the driver interviews. He's had an off-track excursion and he spends most of his time admitting his failures. But the fact is, he's leading the championship. That's not much of a failure at the end of the day. He's been doing a fantastic job at his debut with the Absolute Racing team this year, and a hell of a nice guy too. So learning an awful lot from a driver the calibre of Warren Luff.
And just to remind you, 2 distinct races. We've got the GT3 races, the top 12 places are fighting for position in GT3. Then it's the GTM class, and as you mentioned, Luff and Wang leading that in 14th position overall, and ahead in GTM, ahead of Farmer and Lim, who are 15th, and then Mo and Lim in 16th position. Pit stop 2 window now open.
Okay, what will we see? I mean, what you'd want to do realistically, and I suggest what the engineers are telling their drivers, is let's just keep going. Let's keep going towards the end of this 10-minute window, just in case the weather changes and we can put you back on the slicks. We don't want to be pitting you and putting you onto wet weather tyres. So just even if you aren't the optimum driver, absolutely, just keep going as long as you can. Reality is there's a number of pros behind the wheel, and they will be wanting to stay into the car a little bit longer. So certainly Davide Rizzo is not going to be looking to come in anytime soon. They may have to go out and drag him in the way he's going around at the moment.
I'm going to say Anthony Liu's not going to be much slower than he is, though.
No, certainly not. But Davide would be enjoying his time behind the wheel. And these guys have been a real surprise. What was a surprise to me at the opening round of the championship in South Korea is 12 months ago, we hadn't seen these guys. Anybody that really knew much about them, or about the championship and about certainly sports car racing in Asia, will have learned a little bit about them from things like Super Trofeo, Carrera Cup, and also the Asian Le Mans Series. But they won both the opening races in South Korea. Everyone said, where the hell did these guys come from? The interesting thing was, despite the fact Anthony Liu finished second, only about 5 points short of Motwang's son for the championship last year, they kind of discounted them at the opening round this year, and they backed up with their third victory out of 3 starts in South Korea.
Wait, he's going to go for a ride. No, he's not. There's
plenty of room. So this is what we're talking about. This isn't a proper fuel rig for an endurance style race. So to allow some of those teams, and that's going to take more time to make the change. That's why we have the 5-minute stop, so we don't discount anybody. Now, as it turns out, there aren't too many teams that don't have the full endurance format style fuel rigs. So next year, if we do this, and there's some question we may even do it twice during the 2016 season.
Whoa!
And I'm one that hopes so too.
Collado going very wide, but okay.
Well, there's plenty of grip still off track.
He's
using all of it.
He's probably got more grip out there.
Next year, we may see that we won't have a 5-minute stop. It will be your minimum stop. You come in, you make your change, you do what you need to do, and you get your driver out.
Kato and Wee coming in.
So Richie will step out of the car. Kato will trump back behind the wheel. There's probably no need to even change off the where the tyres they're on. If there is another significant change, maybe they can hang on another 25 odd minutes until the next stop.
I got a story for you. I talked to Frank Yu while I was down the pit lane and said, hey, Greg said, how did you go? And he goes, that was the worst time I've had in the car ever. And I said, what do you mean? He said, I was dehydrated. He said I couldn't have done another 2 laps. He said I wasn't enjoying it. I felt, just not right. And he said it's the most dehydrated he's been, and he was surprised that he even has got to a seasoned professional. I say professional because I consider him so, but a seasoned driver like Frank Yu. And so that's how tough it is out there. It'll have cooled down a little bit with this weather, but it's humid. And so psychologically, physically as well, very tough indeed. You're concentrating harder than you would be perhaps in the dry when you're in your rhythm and you're in the zone. And Frank was the first to admit that it was a tough stint. So I think this is going to be a really interesting stint for Frank because he's going to be somewhat trepid about just both the conditions and how he is physically. Because he admitted to me, Frank, he's got no filter. He does it like it is, even if it concerns him. He said, no, really didn't enjoy it. Did a good job, but didn't enjoy it.
Well, that's interesting. I think you'd probably hear that from a few of the drivers up and down pit lane because they are fairly offensive conditions, aren't they? I mean, it is thick with heat and moisture in the air. So those once you couple that with the inside temperatures of the cockpit of a race car, it gets very, very difficult. But Frank's one. I mean, when we interviewed him earlier in the weekend, I said, "Are you going to use a cool suit? Because you're a great one for saying, hey, I'm fit enough.
No, he does have one.
I've got a couple of little kids. I run around with them. I'm as fit as I need to be." But certainly, he's had to concede that you need to take that advantage here this weekend. Now, there was a very sad sight as you were just talking that interview through with Frank Yu. They put the number 34 GTM class Lango Racing Lamborghini back into the garage. So that's disappointment for Takuma Aoki and Ken Urata. They had cooling problems yesterday. They thought they'd resolved them, so you tend to suggest they haven't in fact resolved the problem, and they've had to park that car in the garage. So for the GTM class title contenders, that will be disappointment for them, but hopefully they'll take something out of this weekend.
It's getting interesting, Sean. I reckon that the conditions are improving to the point where we might start to see a drying line soon. And I don't mean like in the next 5 minutes, but certainly in the next 15 minutes, which does make the decision to risk going on slicks into this next stint a possibility. Certainly if you've got to do some work, certainly if you're trying to catch up and take a risk, it makes sense. You certainly don't want to be stuck out there. Look at the difference how wet it is on the outside there. And I just think that if you want to take a risk, this would be the time to do it.
There's risk, but then there's championship points, championship table to consider. So
double points, though.
Will you take that risk? I mean, sometimes they pay off, sometimes they don't pay off. There's a situation we're talking about. Nathan Antunes is the championship points leader in Australia. We had rain coming into one of their events just a couple of weeks ago in Sydney, and he was in a position where he could come into pit lane and potentially change tyres and take advantage of the changing conditions, or hang on another lap and just see whether or not the conditions could change so they could make that change and send him out with the correct tyre to have a real charge towards the end of the race. They hung on another lap behind the safety car and lost so much time during the stop that they nearly went a lap down. He drove so well alongside a driver the calibre of Christopher Mees that he was able to put himself back on the podium. But he could have won that race, and they admit that, but these are some of the gambles you take. It didn't work. So in this instance, do you want to take a risk? It's a 3-hour race. We've still got about half this race still to go. Or do you want to make sure you're there at the end, especially when you have double championship points on offer here this weekend?
Let's just remind everybody how to get in touch if they want to tweet in or get some questions to you or any of the teams and find out.
Well, certainly the best way to do that, twitter.com/GT Asia Series, all one word. If you do a search, you'll certainly find it. Same with Facebook. We have well over 100,000 fans following us now on Facebook, and it's facebook.com/GT Asia Series. And we're very proud this weekend. Many of you will be watching it on the new GT Asia Series website, which has just been introduced. So you can log on to gtasiaseries.com as well and keep up with all the activities and what's going on with the series. It's one of the GTM class GDL Racing Porsches. Perhaps out of position. No, they're obviously boxed in during their stop.
All new Italian team coming into the championship as one of the Bentleys heads out. It's the 77.
Like Jackie Young's helmet, but that in fact
should be
Duncan Tappy
yeah.
back behind the wheel of that car. So Davide Rizzo continues to charge through. Is he going to head towards pit lane?
Yes.
Yes, he is. So the race leader now in pit lane for his compulsory pit stop. Just checking for 35, so there's just over a minute left in this pit window. So again, we'll see a mix-up of the order. Be interesting to see what decision the BBT Ferrari team, the Spirit of Race crew that run that, bulk of the AF Course Ferrari guys out from Italy to assist with running that car, whether they decide to fit the slick tyres, which are sitting just there. They may make that decision. Doesn't appear, looking out the window here, that there is rain falling at the moment. Not too many windscreen wipers running. And the track here at Sepang dries up very, very quickly. So what will the decision be?
The good thing is they've got that 5-minute window where there's no need to panic at this point. And maybe they just leave the tyres on as they are. But I think we're going to see now that the slick tyres definitely in preparation. And slick tyres are going on the number 37 Ferrari. So, getting very interesting indeed. We're at the halfway point of this 3-hour endurance historic race for the series. 6 years in its history, never had an endurance race, and enjoying every minute of it here at Sepang International Circuit in Malaysia. It's round 7 of the championship for 2015. It's been a cracking year. We've had fire and flames, great races, penalties for getting it wrong, from Fuji to Okayama. And, of course, we started it all out back in Korea. Here we are, though, in Sepang, and it's double points, double bubble, and toil and trouble, because the rain has definitely thrown a spanner in the works in many, many ways, but it's great fun. And we're starting to see just how good these teams and drivers are, because these are tough conditions. If you can get it right in these conditions and hold your head and not get it wrong, the professionalism really comes out now, especially for the teamwork and getting it right in terms of making the choice and making the strategy. And it's also where the senior drivers, the professionals, who've seen it all before, who've done 24 hours, people like Darryl O'Young, who've done multiple endurance races and know how to make the call at the right time and tell the junior driver how to drive, when to push, when not to push. And that's what endurance racing is all about. A lot of people don't get it. A lot of people don't understand it. They want to see an out-and-out race. Well, this is about strategy. This is a game of chess in a very fast car, because going hell about the leather, straight for the king or straight for the queen, doesn't always work. And if we're going to use the chess analogy, it's all about being tortoise and hare at the end of the race, not stuck out on track like this.
Now that appears to be a set of slicks.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think the choice of the day, with the conditions as they are improving by the minute, the choice will be slicks if you're still in the pits right now. And we saw the BBT Ferrari putting on slicks.
Prime example, car 11, Carlo Van Dam will be jumping back in. They're making a tyre change. You'd guarantee that will be wets to slicks. And a brand new set of fresh S9L Control Michelin tyres will be bolted onto the number 11 car. Now, Pitty pitted from position number 3, so he will take that position back in all likelihood and give Carlo Van Dam another opportunity to battle at the front of this field. So it's Ferrari, Bentley, Aston Martin, Ferrari, McLaren, the first of the McLaren's position 7, Caldarelli and Wu. Nathan Antunis and Rod Salmon, the young Australian, the Australian GT Championship points leader, position number 8. And it's Lamborghini and the second of the Craft Bamboo. Aston Martin's rounds out the top 10. Now, good story with Ferris Fauzi and Zenlo. That car, did you see the big hit it took at the Chaos Street Race? And it basically destroyed the front of the car, and Zenlo was telling me earlier in the weekend it's rebuilt from the windscreen forward, and a brand new engine and gearbox, because it broke both the engine and the gearbox during that very big crash. They're not exactly sure what happened. They've looked at the data, and they said from the onboard you can see the gearbox flick from 3rd to 4th and back to 3rd and then back to 4th just before the incident, so they think they had a bit of an electrical issue. So nice to see them back and competing here. Now, does that look like they've had a tyre change and their slicks still sitting there? Or do you think they've bolted those slicks on? I mean, I'd have bolted the slicks on if you can see Carlo Van Dam putting 6 tyres on the car, unless they have a direct line to the man making the weather, and they know that there's something else coming, and they have chosen to stay on the wet rubber. I would expect they'd be out there in slicks. I mean, it almost looks dry now, doesn't it?
It's hard to tell. TV's very deceptive sometimes. You kind of wander around. Plus, this track is one of those tracks where it can be very wet out the back and dry, in the pit lane. You can see the still spray down. There's a lot of water still on track, but as we go into turn 1, you can see it's sort of greasiness rather than a full wet, and it's starting to dry out in pit lane. Duncan Tappy's a good example. We'll get a chance to see. He's up to 12th at the moment, and I think he's on slicks, and he's circulating pretty fast right now. 2:34.7 his last lap, and we'll see as he comes across the line. Here come our BBT team out on track. Let's see how the conditions are for them.
Interesting to see which of the Bentleys that is that's just crossing pit down the past the pit exit. It may have been the Jeffrey Lee and Andy Merrick.
He's on slicks.
Yep. Anthony's definitely
any
on slicks.
You may have had has now been answered.
Well, there you go. That's the Bentley. It was Andy Merrick, sport driver, the factory Bentley driver behind the wheel now of the Jeffrey Lee car. Or in fact, this is 3rd stint. That may be Jeffrey back behind the wheel. Let's just check very quickly and make it accurate. Jeffrey Lee started the car, so this is stint 3. Jeffrey Lee will be back behind the wheel. Now we know that is Carlo Van Dam back behind the wheel of the number 11 Singer Ferrari. Very tentative through turn 4, so you guarantee all those guys are on slicks.
Yeah, this is going to be a tough part of the race, this next 10 minutes. As we said, we're waiting for that drying line. It will come in if the conditions don't change. No guarantee of that, of course. But I would hazard a guess, looking out of the window, I'm looking at turn 4 and 5, where we are right now, and the conditions don't look to be changing. The wind hasn't picked up any, and so I'm expecting a drying line in the very near future. And that is why most of the professionals that are out there now have chosen to go on slicks, and it's a gamble they have to take, because if one guy goes, you've all got to go.
So again, we've got to wait until the end of this lap to see where everybody is going to be in the order, because the compulsory pit stops, some have pitted early, some have pitted late. There's a couple, in fact, Richie Wee is shown still in pit lane, so they've obviously pitted very late in that window. So they are yet to rejoin and get themselves back in the order. It's surprising, of course, they don't have a bigger issue. Hopefully they don't. They've been quite competitive so far this weekend. Again, Richie Wee is the reigning Rookie of the Year for the GT Asia Series.
Yeah, you can hear the revs going up on the McLaren, and as they get the wheel spin, this is a real tough time, because you've got so much power. You've got the slick tyres and wet conditions. Pit stop window is closed, so we are now back to full racing in terms of everybody shuttling through. And we'll start to see that order. Still cars to come out. There is the number 12, well, as you say, last man standing, still in the pit lane.
just as we watched that shot looking across to the number 12 car, I noticed that a very wide Anthony Liu came through the final corner completely sideways.
No
So
surprise.
he's enjoying his time back behind the wheel, and he'll be pressing on to try and make the most out of this advantage.
You can hear
back
him.
at the front of the field.
He's hardly pushing.
Oh.
Listen. Oh, no! The Aston Martin has beached it. Lions and you.
Frank Yu be back behind the wheel. That's from position number 7. I hope we didn't put the commentator's
Marcus
curse
on
on them because they've had such a shocking year.
I don't think he's going to get out of that.
That's bogged. That's seriously bogged. So they'll need to recover the car.
Yep, look.
I don't think any pushing is going to help that car. Unfortunately, it's too
You're going to need
deeply
a lot
buried
more than that.
in the gravel. Be interesting to see where on the circuit that is.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's disappointment for Frank. So the cars can be recovered under the endurance rules that we've set for this weekend. The cars can be recovered if they're recovered safely. It can come back to the garage. They can do what work they need to and put the car back into the system. We still have an hour and 17 minutes left in this race, so there's plenty of time. We've seen cars come back through the field from adversity before, and there's still a long way to go in this race. So they'll be pretty keen, the Craft Bamboo Racing team, to recover that car and see what they can do to get Frank and Richard Lyons back out. So that was part of the circuit that's not too far away from where we are.
I think it's the exit of 6 and 7.
Yeah, yeah.
Either way, bad news. And still in the pits at the moment. The last car.
Yep.
And now they're away.
They're not too concerned. So clearly no big issue, except the fact he doesn't seem to be able to get a gear. That
can be a problem.
That's a bit of an issue for a race car. It's away now, not particularly quickly.
Got it now. Okay, away
so
he goes.
Rocky Koto back behind the wheel. And he did a great job in the opening stanza of this race before the first compulsory stop. So we expect to see him do okay. Carlo Van Dam's having a pretty good time as he marches back up the order, still shown in position number 3. So will be interesting to see what kind of lap time that Anthony Liu
Yeah, I'm
is
going to say we're waiting for him
with at
to
the moment.
shuffle through and give us a real benchmark as to what the conditions can yield in terms of a decent lap time.
So all the compulsory stops done, everybody back out on track. Nothing lightning happening just yet. The right analogy in these conditions, but nobody's pushing particularly hard. Track is certainly
2:33,
dry.
that's your benchmark then.
Yep.
2:33 by Risso and Liu. And we'll see what this man, Van Dam, does as he finishes his lap.
You pick Duncan Tappy, 2:28 fastest car on track at the moment. So that was a pretty good benchmark. He's had a bit of time out there on the wet with those slick tyres now. So we'll watch how quickly those times start to fall.
Here we go. Let's see Van Dam. He crosses the line now and 2:30. So he's up the pace as well. And for himself compared to Rizzo and Liu did a 2:33, and as you say, Tappy 2:28. So we're starting to see a margin now of between high 28s and low 33s to 35s. And that's really where we are in terms of the conditions on slick tyres. No point in going on wets now.
No. What you've got to consider, of course, is 2:04 was the pole time. So
yeah,
they're well off the pace. That's just how much extra time they're going to be able to find as this circuit starts to dry, assuming, of course, we don't get another shower. But who knows? That's another unpredictability as we see Kitasawa again in the number 8 Bentley.
And Darryl O'Young
immediately behind him. And these two are the championship points leader, equal on championship points. Currently they're shown in positions number 4 and number 5. And the way Darryl O'Young's been racing this weekend, I would almost put money on him getting around the number 8 Bentley and driving away. And that would put them clear well and truly in the championship points if they can finish on the top couple of steps of this podium.
To be honest, I don't think I've ever seen the Bentley race in wet conditions.
The Aston's back on track. Never seen the Bentley in the wet.
No, I mean, obviously the Aston Martins had a lot more time on track and Bentley coming into racing, but, you know, it's obviously a very fast car. It's more nimble than it looks, but how it handles in the wet, hard to say, and it doesn't look to be doing exceedingly well right now. Sauer struggling a little bit, and Duncan Tappy pushing hard in his particular Bentley as we take a look now at Van Dam as well, just ahead.
So back to the GTM class order, it is Jerry Wang that championship points leader in the GTM class with Australian Warren Luff alongside, that are leading that class, shown in position number 12. Second in class is the Lynn Farmer GDL Racing Porsche, and third in class appears to be their teammates. The second of the GDL Porsches, one of them on screen now, in position number 16. So the Dadali Cooney car has dropped back to 4. We saw them off early. They were in fact first victim of the rain once it started to fall. So they're still circulating position number 4. Dylan Dadali back behind the wheel of the number 20 car.
2:28 from Van Dam last lap. He crosses the line again. So just a couple of seconds quicker. The gap is 31 seconds. Let's just recap where we are in this race, because we've had a lot of, not confusion, but the weather has certainly changed things. We've had, in the middle of that weather stint, we had also a change of pit stop stint, and therefore a few things to distract from the overall race strategy. But as it stands, Rizzo and Liu in the Ferrari 458. They lead the race. They have a 30-second lead over Van Dam and Biramakti. And then Collado and Mott still in the hunt, and in third place at the moment, Kurosawa and Adelaide Fong in fourth position in the first of the Bentleys. Then Darryl O'Young and Lloyd, the pole position men, are in the top 5 and circulating actually one of the fastest times at 2:27 last time out by O'Young. As we see on track now, the people in second place in the Singer Ferrari and siding their way through. The lights flashing from Carlo Van Dam. And he's going to try to use this stint to give himself the advantage. And this is where, like I said, the pros really make their mark, is because they know that this is when it counts. This is when their skills are needed. It's no good just circulating around and kind of taking the opposition here and casually going about it. Now they have to push really hard, because they don't know what the weather's going to do. And they also don't know whether it's going to pan out in the last 20 minutes, where they get to a point where their gentleman driver has to take the pressure. So Carlo's incentive now is to try to give as stronger advantage to his teammate as he can, and hopefully people will get stuck in traffic, as we see here. The Bentleys holding up the VLT number 99 Aston Martin as they're side by side, and that is not what they ordered. A double Bentley does not go into Aston twice, and the second Aston Martin behind them, that was a big moment, and it looks as though the number 88 has got back and going again. We saw them in the gravel. Frank Yu, of course. But he too now pushing hard on the number 7 Bentley. Myrick and Lee and Jeffrey Lee having to give that place away to Frank Yu as they're side by side down the back straight. An interesting and intriguing battle between these two. It always is.
It's just great to see the number 88 car continuing to circulate.
Yeah, exactly.
Dropped back to 14th now, so essentially it'll be 2 laps down on the race leaders, hopefully without too much damage to the car. And frustration for Frank Yu, but he's just going to have to work past that. We've still got an hour and 10 minutes left in this race, so plenty of opportunity for the team to just keep pressing on.
And just under 20 minutes before the next stint stop.
So minimum 5-minute stop, compulsory for every driver in the field. There's a 10-minute window to pit. You can pit early in the window, you can pit late in the window, but you must stop in that 10-minute window. Notwithstanding that, you will incur a drive-through penalty. During the stop, you must stop for a minimum of 5 minutes. That's to allow to refuel the car, 4 tyre change if you desire. And let's face it, you've got 4 brand new Michelin S9Ls to go on the car. You will take that opportunity, and every car must have a driver change. Then you go back out and continue on in this race. GTM class battle, like the number 20 car battling with, in fact, that is the GT3R car of the Gulf Racing JP team. It's the number 22 car. Similar looking cars, but different dynamics. Certainly the car on screen compared to the 991 Cup car. Aero on that car, wider track. The car behind it, the number 78 car, George Chu, drove the second stint. He's got Robert Lee behind the wheel at the moment. That was one of the title contenders for the GTM class championship last year from the Taiwan Top Speed Racing team. At one stage, if you recall, Johnny, they turned up with 5 cars in one of the 2014 rounds. were a big feature in the championship last year. And young Thomas Fjordbach, who's here this weekend racing in Audi R8 LMS Cup.
Did a great run in GTM, didn't he?
He's done a fantastic job, and he's one of the front runners this year in Audi R8 LMS Cup. He damn near won the championship on his debut with that team last year, but missed the Macau round, was unable to take his place, and the championship victory went for the second time to Jackie Young, who has now since moved on to the Bentley Continental team with Absolute Racing.
Well, Sean, we're about to get into one of the most interesting periods in this race because the times are dropping, the line is coming. We just saw a 2:21.6 from the second place Van Dam. We're getting down to 2:23's the leader, 2:25, 2:26, 2:23 by number 77, that's Duncan Tappy. And so it really is now who dares wins because the times are dropping off quickly. As soon as we got the first dry-ish line, or when the slick tyres were first used, we were in the 33s. That's dropped again now, another 10 seconds. And we're a long way off the pole, but that was set in dry conditions. But we're now starting to see the real racecraft of those top drivers. And it's going to be interesting to see the difference between some of these lap times. And it's going to make a massive difference as they hand over in less than 20 minutes to the next stint.
Well, that's going to give us a great race. It'll be the big sprint race between most of, a number of the pro drivers, all the way to the checkered flag. So what can we predict from all of that? Well, who knows? It's going to be very, very interesting. And if Mother Nature stays true, we should be all right and get through to the finish of this race as a great sprint race in dry conditions. But if it throws in the weather, well, that's just a mix that they're going to have to consider as the teams look at what the closing stages of this race will be like. No windscreen wipers on at present. Johnny's just checking the weather. The update will come shortly, although it looks a little bit misty. Yes, in fact, the rain has started again, Johnny. You wouldn't believe it. Over the back of the circuit, the windscreen wipers are starting to come on, and Mother Nature is, in fact, going to play a part again in this race, which makes things interesting. I can't say I'm disappointed that the conditions have got to this stage, because it just mixes things up just a little bit more. From our perspective, it makes it very, very interesting. But are we going to be able to hang on slicks again?
Well, hang on a minute. This is really going to get very interesting, as you say, because we've got 20 minutes, or just under, 17:34. Yeah, that's almost 20 minutes of these sorts of conditions on slick tyres, 600 brake horsepower. Ha! This is going to be a lot of fun, and it's really tipping it down now.
Yeah, no, they're going to be back in for wets. You can almost guarantee that, but no driver change. So here we go again, another pit stop. So this will mix things back up, and interesting to see what goes on. Look at it now. It's really starting to pick up, but the pace hasn't dropped off too much. What did we see last time around? 2:22 for Rizzo. I think it's certainly going to have impact shortly. 2:31 for Mock. You see him on the right of screen there, immediately behind Darryl O'Young. Darryl O'Young position 4, so he's taken Mock for position number 3. So that has moved the pole sitter back up to position 3. Kitasawa, Mockwang's son's partner that helped him to the championship victory last year, now in a Bentley, not with the Clearwater team, is about to take his old team boss for position. So that drops the number 1 Ferrari back to position number 5. So this is the more experienced professional drivers. These guys do this for a living, that are starting to move their way forward. Of course, Darryl O'Young's got immense experience in the Asian region. So too Kitasawa. In fact, they would be the two probably most high-profile Asian drivers, certainly in sports car racing in this part of the world. So they're about to go battle head-to-head. So will Kitasawa be able to take the position away? And of course they are both leading the championship points. So we're seeing a couple of drivers dive into pit lane. The number 27 car, we see it on screen now, has dived in for wet weather tyres. So too the Andy Merrick and Jeffrey Lee car, the number 7 J-Fly Bentley. You can see it at the top of the screen there.
Yep, and he's away too.
Frank Yu has come in for a fresh set of rubber. And Jeffrey just rejoins in position and continues on.
It's weird. It's another kind of quick downpour, no more than a couple of minutes, but just dumps a bunch of water onto the track. And here we go again. It's enough for them to come in and change tyres. Those, though, that have stayed out on slicks are going to be a big differential time-wise if it dries out again. Be interested to see what these guys do time-wise. Obviously, the 88 is kind of, I mean, it's full gamble at this point because they're out of the race in many ways because of that stop and beach effectively in the gravel. So they may have well stayed on the slicks and just decide, well, they wouldn't have pitted, so they've gone out on wets, trying to make some time up, basically.
Yeah. Well, maybe if the other drivers elect to stay out and slick, something happens, it brings them back into the championship, or back into this race. Certainly, they'll be looking to recover as many points as they can as we head to the next round of the championship, which, of course, will be Shanghai in a couple of weeks' time. So this championship's a long way from finished. It's nice to see the number 27 Ferrari joining us for the first time, the Nexus Infinity team. Dominic Ange and Adrian De Silva are also at the street race at Kuala Lumpur just a few weeks ago and actually ran quite strongly there. So nice to see them joining the championship here this round.
Times have dropped down as we expected, 2:29, 2:27, 2:30. That's the sort of average between the top three anyway. And we'll see what the boys on the wet tyres do. But I don't really see them. I mean, I think it'll help the Aston Martin, the number 88 that's down in 13th position. They should be able to carve their way up and make a few places, but I don't think they'll make any inroads. But right now, in the conditions that we've got, having wet tyres will definitely be to the advantage for the next few laps, for sure.
Okay, now it's time. We're into the final third of this race. Well, close enough to the final third of this race. What's the prediction?
Well, my predict, basically, that it will rain, then stop raining, and then it'll dry up, and then...
Come on, you're English. You've seen enough of these conditions to know that what the weather should be doing. But I don't know. I think it's going to be very interesting. I think you're going to be hard pushed to topple the number 37 car, to be perfectly honest. I think they could end up pulling through. What happens with James Collado, though, in the closing stages, if there is perhaps, say, another safety car, or we group the field up in some way and he is close to the tail of Anthony Liu, that may well be the threat. But either of those results are going to be good for the championship to make things very interesting.
I do get the feeling, and you're right, and I don't know who it'll be, but I've got a feeling that somebody's going to make a mistake on track pushing too hard in either drying conditions or when it rains again, make the mistake of pushing too hard, and it could be the 37 car here. Look, see, that's exactly what I'm talking about. It's like, you know, the conditions are such that you could push too hard in these conditions and find yourself, as we saw with the 88, in real trouble. I also think, prediction-wise, that anybody now, and I think of the likes of Paddy Roberts, the experience of some of the engineers out there, to make decisions, to make strategy calls on their car at the right time, in that last hour, in that window that is, just to do the right thing at the right time, which is impossible to predict. It is a crystal ball thing. But I think, you know, in all honesty, you asked me the question, I think that's really what's going to change this race. It's going to be one decision or one bad. It's going to be one good decision for strategy or one bad decision on road.
Number 5 car in now. That is young Ronald Wu. We're talking about the Hong Kong driver making his debut with the team here this weekend.
He's a good kid.
Oh, yes, he is. He's a nice kid, and he's enjoying his time in the car, but this is not a good sign. So this is the second that the claim's been pushed away.
He's really enjoying it because he's basically driving alongside his mentor, Caldarelli.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So it's master and pupil, but he's actually getting to race with him.
Frank Yu doesn't seem to have lost too much pace. Here he's battling and monstering the tail of the J-Fly racing car.
Well, he's got the wet,
I
right?
don't know that I'd have done that, Frank.
No, Frankie.
Yeah.
Frankie goes to Hollywood. Frankie almost went to the airport.
Jeffrey closed the door, but I think that's probably more to do with the fact that he wasn't expecting the number 88 car to be up the inside of him at that particular point of the circuit. So,
well, I think because of the wet tyres, he's definitely faster, and he's trying to make hay as we expected in these conditions.
So,
but he was in a bit of an inter-rush there, wasn't he?
So Richard Lyons is now. Sorry, this is just a bit of information preparation work just garnished. Certainly, it was Frank Yu who started the number 88 car. And being the third stint, there shouldn't have been a driver change, we don't think. But anyway, we will see how that little bit of information that's popped up on social media is actually accurate or not. And we'll get back to that one. But certainly, you see Carlo Van Dam lights ablaze. The interesting thing is, we were talking about strategy before. Do you start your pro? Do you start your am?
Yeah.
Carlo Van Dam was the pro. He started, but you're going to see drivers the likes of Collado is going to finish.
Yeah.
David
It's gonna be a
Rizzo will
hodgepodge,
finish.
isn't it?
Yeah, there's going to be a good mix of drivers, so it'll be very interesting to see who ends up where on track. So, an interesting one.
Here we go. Take two on this overtake. See if we can pull it off this time.
Certainly good pace in the 88 Interrush car, as you say, on wet weather tyres. And it'd be interesting to see what Jeffrey Lee has done, but they pitted too, so you guarantee they're also out in the J-Fly Racing Bentley on wet weather rubber as well. So Caldarelli and Wu still shown in position number 8, but we saw that car being pushed back into the garage.
Ooh.
And that may well be the number 15 car. It's
It's
car
number 5 actually, that was just pushed out.
That's Ronald Wu, come back out of pit lane, and it has stopped at pit exit. Now that could be a safety car. So there's another thing to consider. Is that badly positioned enough to warrant a safety
I see.
car?
I would say not, actually.
Well,
given where it is.
They'll give the driver enough time to try and reset the systems and start the car.
It's certainly not in a dangerous position right now. I mean, it's protected by the pit wall, regardless of the fact that it's at the pit exit. It's not away from the pit exit. So certainly it's not a danger down the straight to any of the other cars. So I wouldn't see the safety car coming out because of it. I may be wrong, but I think wise heads will prevail on that particular decision.
Now, interestingly, behind these two cars, you'll see an Audi that has
He's got it going.
Warren Luff behind the wheel, starting to range up onto that battle. So he's the current GTM leader in the class. So in fact, that may be Jerry Wack back in the car. Jerry should be behind the wheel. He started the car. It's the third stint. So they're doing quite strongly. They're up to position number 11. So Warren would have contributed to that. We're going to see another passing move. Hopefully no more contact. Didn't quite make it stick that time. Turn 15 onto the start-finish, straight to start. Another lap. We're up to lap number 49 for the leaders. And here comes Carlo.
Carlo crosses the line at 2:27. The gap 21 seconds between the leaders now. Rousseau and Lou, Van Dam and Biron Bakhti.
Started at 26, so it hasn't come down an awful lot. So certainly Anthony Lou's doing exactly what they need to do in this stanza of the race to just maintain position. We're about 5 minutes now away from the compulsory pit stop window opening, so that will make things interesting. What do you do on tyre strategy?
Yeah, I mean, it's
next question.
Exactly. It's a real lottery right now. Turn 4. Usual overtake, doesn't pull it off on the Aston Martin. It's 7 versus 88. Bentley versus Aston Martin. The two great British marques going head to head in the middle of the monsoon weather of Malaysia. Great to see. Fantastic action. You're watching GT Asia, round 7. Sean Henselwood and Jonathan Green bringing you the action from round 7. Double points, remember, in this 3-hour endurance race. It's been a cracking race in terms of intrigue and strategy and race, as well as through goes the Aston Martin on the Bentley, finally getting through. Van Dam just behind, but the conditions really treacherous out there. It's rained, it's stopped, it's rained again. They've had to come in and make pit stops, of course, which is part of the way this is set up in terms of the gentleman drivers and the professionals. They all have to take 2 stints at the wheel, but of course, with the wet weather coming when it did, it was a big choice of what to do, whether to pit or not, without coming in the window. Most people chose to come in before the second pit window to change tyres because it was so wet. Right decision to do so. Now we're in a situation where, again, we've had a quick downpour and the rain has come down. The track is very wet, but we are coming to the end of another stint, just a few minutes away. And those that were on slicks mostly have stayed out. There are some, like Lyons and you, who had stuck in the gravel, decided to come out and put wet weather tyres on and try to get their way back into contention, but they're never going to get back into a top 5 position, I don't think. This race is going to come down in this last hour. We have 53 minutes to go between the Ferrari of Rizzo and Liu, Van Dam and Birambakti also in a 458 Ferrari. Then Young and Lloyd in the first of the Aston Martins. Then the Bentleys are also in pursuit with Sauer and Fong and Colado and Mock. In the clear water racing, 5th place Ferrari are also in contention for this. Tappy's not far away as well. Tappy and Young in 6th place in the 2nd of the Bentleys. Drive-through penalty for Myrick and Lee, and that's not what was the doctor ordered. It's not been an easy weekend, actually, for this team, the number 7 car. But they've gracefully taken it. Stiff upper lip, as a British mark would expect. And again, we wait for the weather to change one more time, perhaps. One thing will improve the line if it stays this way. The drizzle has stopped for now. Well, number 95, that's Wang, who was in the GTM class. And they beached it, and that's not a good position. That is, well, they'll get away with getting it away quickly. Because they'll need to, because if it stays there, that could... Oh! And that was Mock. Spinning it round for Clearwater Racing. So the conditions, like I said, this it's a real double-edged sword right now, because the conditions are improving. But of course, some of the drivers pushing a little too hard for the conditions. Mock gets it going again. And behind him, 6th place Tappy and Young in the Bentley. We didn't see the start of that spin, but no question that big mistake there by Mock.
So what have I missed?
You missed Mock going round, spinning round, and that's about it really, but we're only a couple of minutes away from the pit lane window opening again.
With any luck, the final time, goodness only knows what the weather's going to do.
Let's hope. One thing I do hope is that we get a sprint finish,
Yeah, let's just see it go head to head, because it was certainly a lot of people discussing that that's the way it's going to go. That looks like Rod Salmon and Nathan Antunes. So that's car 5. That's back in the garage. Car 15, rather. Car 5, of course, is Caldarelli. There's Andrea talking to Nathan Antunes. Ronald Wu's still in car 5. It's currently shown as position number 16. It's also in pits. So the 2 Triple F racing team, in fact, all 3 of the Triple F racing team by ACM McLaren 650s have had a bit of a battle this weekend. They're always going to be up against it with turbo induction and the very warm weather. Very, very sideways by Darryl O'Young coming through turn 3. So he's really trying to push on too. Currently position number 3, 43 seconds back from the race leader. And Van Dam's continuing to chip away, as you said. Took 3 seconds last time out off off Anthony Liu, who's still behind the wheel of the number 37 car.
Okay, pit entry is now open, and I think this is going to be the most interesting. This is where I think the strategy is going to play in. You've got 10 minutes now to make a big, big decision. Do you come in right now, or do you stay out? And I think the decisions that be made now in the next few minutes could change the face of this race.
Well, certainly, if your co-driver's James Collado, you'd pit whenever you needed to pit, and Lockring Sun's clearly taken the decision, but that's now. I'm pitting now. James, you're getting in now, and you're going to close out this race. We have 50 minutes to go, and you're going to go hard, because you're going to be the one that puts our championship right back on track, because you're going to be capable of circulating 2 or 3 seconds a lap faster than some of these guys. So he's got a pro in the car. This is the problem now for the number 11 car, who are going to put Piti Birambakti back behind the wheel. He's not going to be able to match the pace of James Collado. He can be quick, we've seen that, but that's the thing that he's going to have to battle. So,
and I also think that Lloyd's going to come into play. Daniel Lloyd,
yes,
the young 23-year-old from Huddersfield, in Great Britain, the junior Aston Martin driver is suddenly going to have the weight of Craft Bamboo upon him to try and keep that podium position for this team. We're watching Darrell Young circulate right now, but I have every faith in the youngster. He's learnt the circuit overnight almost. He may never have raced in these hot conditions before. He's fit, he's young, he's a Yorkshire lad, and I think it's going to be a very interesting last stint for him. But you say, you know, there is going to be a big difference between the gentleman drivers and the professionals in terms of the overall lap times. But having said that, you know,
that's the race leader. That's not what we need to be doing this late in the session.
Blue does not go into red at turn 4.
No, that's not going to help you win races, and this may play into Carlo Van Dam's hands. But you're talking about Craft Bamboo putting their faith in Daniel Lloyd. They've already put their faith this year in Jonathan Venter, another one of the young Aston Martin Academy drivers who's helped Darrell Young get to the championship points lead. And if it wasn't for that cycling accident he had whilst he was training to be in preparation for the closing stages of this championship, he'd be behind the wheel of this car and essentially keeping the number 99 VLT Aston Martin at the front of the field. It's the Zenlo Ferris Fauzi OD Racing Lamborghini taking service.
So the teams, as you can see, frantically working now, and this is where concentration, this is where the tiredness comes in. It is only a 3-hour race, but a lot of these guys, with the practice early this morning, have been here since 7 o'clock this morning. And now, as we get closer to the 6 o'clock hour, the concentration for the mechanics, the engineers, not just the drivers. We focus on the drivers, but remember, it's the decisions that these mechanics make now in terms of refueling, in terms of tyres, in terms of making the choices right and getting it right at the right time is critical here in this last stint. 46 minutes to go. Lots of movement in the pit lane.
It's going to be interesting, isn't it? It really has been a fantastic event so far. We're still, well, we've got a quarter of it left, so anything could happen. We've already seen that so far during this race. There's been very little time to sit still because something has been going on track. And the 15 car is back out. They've got the right rear off. They're going on to slicks, so that's interesting.
Yeah, I think slicks is absolutely the choice. Having said that, call me back in 10 minutes and I'll change my mind.
Young Nathan Antunes has proven that he's been a bit of a dab hand behind the wheel of a GT3 car over the last 18 months. And in fact, Rod Salmon he told me he's completed 2 full laps of the full Nürburgring circuit during the Nürburgring 24-hour race this year in an Audi R8 in wet conditions. So he was quite happy to race around in the wet. But
yeah, the
green
oppressive
heat
not
is
something
another
I'd
thing.
want to take on.
No. So very experienced driver as we see. That's Anthony Liu out of the car. Davide Rizzo should be wandering around after the refuel on the 37 car to take over the wheel for the closing stints and hope that he retains the lead in this race. So Ferrari, Aston Martin, Bentley, Ferrari, Lamborghini, Bentley and Audi now moving into position number 10. That would be Carlo Van Dam continuing to the closing stages. This is his last couple of laps behind the wheel of the number 11 car. He'll be doing everything he can to take as big a lead into pit lane to hand over to Piti Bhirombhakdi and give him the opportunity to maybe emerge as the leader of this race, but he'll be very quickly under fire from Davide Rizzo. But the one we're keeping a close eye on is James Collado. He's behind the wheel of the number 1 Clearwater Racing Ferrari, and he will be the one that we would expect sets the rule. There he is. He's just about to exit pit lane.
Big stint, this one.
It will be mega, and this could be the very result that puts the reigning champion right back in this title race after what, by his standards, has been a pretty disastrous start to the year.
They looked at this race and said double points, Mock at home, Collado in the car. They've had Jimmy Bruni, they've had Tony Vilander at other races. Collado, though, he's on the world level. He'll be in Austin in a couple of weeks representing World Endurance for Ferrari. So he too, one of the best drivers in the world at sports car racing and the perfect guy to do this last stint. And I really do think the guys that have got the professionals in for this last stint have made the right decision, especially with what's travailed over the last couple of hours in terms of the weather. Right now, with the conditions as they are, and it's going to be a wet to drying condition in the last 43 minutes, I the guy you want at the helm is the most experienced guy you can get. Mock's got that opportunity, and in goes Collado.
Ferris Fauzi's just about to exit pit lane in the OD Racing Lamborghini.
Now he'll put some fireworks on at home, won't he?
He certainly will. Unfortunately, it looks like they've dropped a lap to the leaders. Now, they're shown as lap 50, and the leader is shown as lap 54. Again, some of these guys have been sitting in pit lane for 2 laps. So we've got to wait for this cycle to work its way out before you can, absolutely, before you can start to make any predictions about who's where in this particular race. But certainly, Carlo Van Dam's continuing to charge. He hasn't got very much time left. That pit window is going to close in 3 minutes, so he's probably got 1 more lap before he can fire into pit lane. But the other thing he's got to consider, look who's now behind the wheel of the number 1 car. So be interesting to compare paces too. But what decision did they make on tyres?
He's got to have gone slicks.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
I look out the window and I say that.
Yeah, well, maybe not. We'll see. But it's always a gamble, isn't it? Pushing the 37 car back to give the GDL team some space.
Whoop,
we've
another
had a spinner.
spin.
It's the 22 Golf Racing JP car. Or Keno car. They've been running with us all season. Haven't done a bad job. Of course, an older specification GT3 car, the oldest GT3 car in the field. Most of these cars, or many of these cars, are 2015 spec FIA GT3 cars. So right at the top of the food chain, so to speak, and very, very competitive. So pit stop 3 window open, pit stop 3 window close in just on 2 minutes. So Carlo Van Dam will be into the pits very, very soon.
Yeah, it's going to be a critical stop for the Singer team. They've played it right. They've tactically done a very good job. They've driven both of them very well. And it all depends on what will happen and what will unfold in these last 40 minutes and what the weather will bring. There could be a twist in the tail of this one. I almost hope there isn't, because I want to see a sprint in dry conditions. Here we go then. Last pit stop for the Singer 458. Out goes the 37 458 of BBT Racing.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? 5 minutes the 11 car is going to have to stop. That's going to be 2 and a bit laps. Well, at this pace, it'll be essentially 2 laps, won't it? So, well, they're 2 laps up, 2 laps down, lost in the pit stop. What's going to happen when Petty Berembakti exits the pits? Where will he be in this race? Currently, he's shown as a lap up on Daniel Lloyd. That car, too, is in pit lane.
You'd have to argue that it's looking good for the 37 right now.
Absolutely. So currently they're shown in position, where are they? Position number 6, 2 laps down. But there they are on screen. They're circulating. The number 11 car is in pit lane. It's not going anywhere for about 4.5 minutes. So this is the time that Davide Rizzo's really got to be both careful and also push as hard as he possibly
he's physically
can.
pushing hard, but like you say, he's got to be careful coming through 4, 5.
Have they gone to slicks? I'm hearing a lot of rattle guns, so I'm assuming that a lot of these guys are going onto slick tyres. My father always told me never to assume anything, but I think pretty safe in this instance.
I'm looking myself. Let's have a look at the tyres.
Yep.
Slick, slick, slick.
Oh, was that a slick or a wet? That looked... there's certainly slicks have come off. We'll see. We'll see. No windscreen wipers.
No, I'd say slick.
I think that would be the smart move to go onto slick tyres.
It's tough though, and you can see him struggling.
Yep, well let's just see what this first lap is like for Davide Rizzo.
So pit entry has closed for the final time in this 3-hour historic GT Asia Round 7 2015 race from the famous Sepang circuit. It's been entertaining, that's for sure. No question about it. It's thrown up everything, and I think we'll get some very interesting interviews at the end of this, and some very tired drivers and engineers and mechanics, because this has been a workout for sure.
Here we go, getting ready to go. Still got a little bit of time to sit in the car. Oh, what's going on here? We've seen the Porsche strike more trouble. Or it's one of the McLaren starting to fire back into the order. So currently on the McLaren 650S front, the number 15 car of Nathan Antunes and Rod Salmon, young Antunes at the wheel is shown in position number 15, but 6 laps down. And the Caldarelli Wu car is shown in position number 18 and still in pit lane. So I'd say they have struck some kind of trouble. And the 55 car, of course, struck some grief too. As, gee, the 78 Taiwan Top Speed Racing Team Ferrari 458 Challenge is getting all out of shape coming out of turn 2 as we see the battle. There's the 2 championship points leaders rejoining, one in front of the other. So game on for Daniel Lloyd, and he will have Adderley Fong doing everything in his power to get ahead of that car, because this is going to play well and truly into this championship. Those 2 cars could potentially be on the podium, and Adderley Fong is already starting to push young Daniel Lloyd pretty hard.
Just looking at this.
Oh, gee. Very, very untidy coming through turn 3. Now Adderley's tried to dive up the inside. So this is actually, we've got the race. We've got the race that we were looking for.
Right, it's what we were looking for. Adelaide not holding back and forward. Through he goes.
Position number 2 and 3 on track. So these guys will now work themselves into the equation. Where will that fit against the 37 car? Well, we will very soon find out.
Still not easy in terms of the conditions, and just looking at it, I was just concerned at Rizzo's time, 7:33 for that last lap that he just did. Seems very slow indeed.
Well, 5-minute pit window plus, what's that, 2:33 first lap out on those tyres. But he could have potentially lost 6 or 7 seconds based on the fact that some of the guys around him were doing 2:26s, 2:27s. So he could have lost time on, well, he'd be on colder tyres too, so something to consider, but Richard Lyons certainly isn't, and he's doing what he can to try and move that number 88 into Rush Aston Martin back up the order. Currently shown position number 12, but 4 laps down on the race leader.
Threading the needle somewhat now in these conditions. There's only one line really. And here comes the Singer 458. He's got some work to do for sure. He's not going to get lapped, but he's going to be a long way behind. Here comes the leader. And it's going to be touch and go in terms of... And they come.
Okay, now we have an order that we can start to establish as to what's going to go on. We're talking about it would be a Ferrari battle. We thought perhaps the number 1 Ferrari would be in this. Now let's look at where's James Collado. It's 2:20 last time round. 2:25s for the guys around him. So he's pulling them in at 4 or 5 seconds a lap.
Yeah.
So we've still got 35 minutes left in this race.
He's got time.
He's certainly got time to get right back into the equation. So there's a little bit still yet to be sorted, but Petty Bhirombhakdi, he showed under immense pressure in the closing stages of round 5, and that was from Tony Verlander, that he could in fact take the car across the line to victory. So still a little bit to go. Well, certainly earlier in the piece was from Tony Verlander. He was battling with Carlo Van Dam, pros, AMs, but he had Mockwing's son close in at the closing stages of that race, and he managed to weather that storm from the number 1 car and take the round victory. So he's used to a little bit of pressure, really stepped up this year, done a lot of Porsche driving over the years. Certainly the Thailand Super Series, he's been very competitive, but this is another step above the GT Asia Series, and so far he's managed to really step up and work very well with Carlo Van Dam.
So just 5 cars on the lead lap, 55 laps gone. 6 cars, I should say, with Tappy included.
Oh,
the number 77.
Here we go. That's the race lead change. So already Davide Rizzo has caught and passed Petty Bhirombhakdi. You've got to wonder whether or not the Thai driver might have had a bit of a drama somewhere on that opening lap. But of course, he's also circulating on cold tyres. So Davide Rizzo has taken the position away and moved to the front of the field again with a bit under 35 minutes left in this race.
Younger and Lloyd still in 4th position. We're looking at the 88 of Lyons and Yu.
So what's
Lyons
the tactic?
right behind the Ferrari now.
Trying to get temperature into the tyres, or maybe
Whoa.
unsettle the race leader.
Ah! This is going to be interesting. Whoa! And through he goes. Have a bit of that, son. And some interesting driving going on right now.
It's game on. Don't think that'll go down particularly well in the AF Corsa pits, the Spirit of Race team. They won't be too wrapped with somebody that's a couple of laps down, forcing their way through and weaving across in front of them.
Exactly, that's what I was just thinking.
Yeah, so still, I mean, there's a lot to play for here, and the teammate of the 88 car, of course, is currently shown in position 4, and they are in this championship battle.
You know, honestly, the way the weather is, you know, like I said, you could be critical of that move, but not really.
No.
He might be a long way down, but he's racing himself, and he knows he's just going hell-bent for leather, because if it rains again, he's back in this race.
Absolutely, he's back in this race. He's got plenty of talent too. So Collado, let's just check the times. 2:19 last time round. Davide Rizzo at 2:24, so 5 seconds. So that's the 15 car. This is Daniel Lloyd now facing the Australian GT Championship points leader, Nathan Antunis, in the number 15 McLaren. So they've fired that car back up. They're a little bit further down the order, but Antunis will be very keen to show what he's capable of. We know what that is. He's leading the points in Australia, so very, very talented young driver. Two very, very talented young drivers on screen at present.
Just wondering if there's any more weather to be had. I'm going to stick my head out the window and just see what the conditions are like for a second there, Sean, because obviously if we can predict that the next 30 minutes will bring something, it's just hard to predict because it's just grey out there.
It certainly looks like it's coming back in. So this is still a long way from over. In fact, 32 minutes away from being completed, this race. James Collado is the guy that we're keeping a close eye on, currently shown in position number 5. 2:17 last time round, 2:24 for Davide Rizzo in the BBT Ferrari. So we see this battle between Daniel Lloyd and Nathan Antunis continue. He's going to try to go around the outside in the Triple F Racing McLaren. Interesting to see how that move winds up. But certainly Daniel Lloyd, who set the pole time in the second qualifying session earlier today, has done a fantastic job on his debut for the Craft Bamboo Racing team. And they're still right in the mix of this battle. So Antunis might be a little bit further down the order, but he's very keen to push on and get as much knowledge driving this McLaren 650S as he can as we head towards the next round of the championship, which is not very far away. In fact, 3 weeks away at the Shanghai International Circuit, another Formula One circuit in China.
Okay, give you an update on the weather. Just been outside. It is dry as a bone now. Obviously, we're seeing still wet track, especially at the back part of the circuit. But here on the front side, just went out on the podium. It's dry as a bone, and I think we're going to see a dry line very, very quickly because the track is heating up in dry conditions. No sign of any more rain to come, but that could change, of course, in the next 30 minutes. But certainly right now, I'm predicting that this race will get faster and faster in the closing stages. And you only have to look at the 2:18.6 by Sauer and Fong last time out. Adelaide Fong flying at the moment. 2:18.6 compared to the men in front of him. Bakhti doing a 2:25.8. So we've got a cracking race. Lloyd just as a 2:19.7. And likewise Collado, 2:17.9. Daryl O'Young watches on as his young teammate Lloyd doing the business. What an interesting, fascinating race this has turned out to be. It's far from over either.
Everything you would want to expect from a good endurance race we've had this weekend so far, or certainly this race so far. And again, it's a long way from over.
Rizzo and Liu leading. The gap only 5 seconds.
The gap they'll be concentrating on, though, is the gap back to position number 5, which is currently at 67 seconds. Now, they're only 4 seconds a lap they're losing to the British WEC star. So that's not going to be enough over the next 29 minutes, I don't think, for Collado to actually make up unless something dramatic
good,
happens.
but he's not a wonder boy, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And that's almost being, not rude, but Rizzo and Liu have proved that they are world class for sure, and they're not going to lose that kind of time.
No. And how much of his tyres has he had to use up in order to get that kind of lap time too?
Exactly.
So it looks like Daniel Lloyd's managed to pull away from Nathan Antunis and start to pull away the Australian driver. Look at the grass caught in the intake there. Now, let's hope that doesn't
too much.
Yes, absolutely. Drive the temperature of the car up, and that'll give the Craft Bamboo team something else to consider. No doubt they'll be monitoring that. They'll be talking to Daniel just to see what the temperatures are. Certainly a dry line starting to appear on the circuit.
I've got to say, you can see that it's grey out there, but dry.
Rizzo now into the 2:18s. So he's doing well, and he's your GTM class points leader. So that is Warren Luff. He's taken over from Jerry Wang. Jerry Wang is the championship points leader in the GTM class. This has been the standout car in that category over the last couple of years. And Jerry's debut season in GT Asia Series. So nice for him to be in that position. So I'd be keeping an eye on them. They're 10th outright. Now, he's probably unlikely to pull back a lap on the leaders, but Warren Luff, very talented in these conditions. In fact, 226, I'd say he's just taken over. Well, he has just recently taken over that car, but 226 is fairly slow for him last time round. We'll see what he gets when he comes to the strike next time round. But he could pull in some serious time too, because whilst the track's in fairly slippery conditions, you're going to find that the drivers with world-class experience are going to be the ones to make the most out of the lap times, despite the fact that the performance of the car might not be as good. And certainly there's about, what you'd say, 4 or 5 seconds a lap difference between an outright FIA GT3 car and the GTM class field around the Sepang circuit.
Well, let's just sum up where we are with 27 minutes to go in this 3-hour endurance race. GT Asia, round 7 of the championship for double points. At the moment, we have 5 cars on the lead lap and the possibility of maybe Tappy and Young joining them on lap 58. They've just crossed the line now. But as it stands, the leaders have an 8-second lead over second place Van Dam and Biram Bhakti. In third place, it's Sauer and Fong. They're 15 seconds adrift in third place. Oh, Young and Lloyd pushing really hard. We're watching them on screen right now, but they are sub 29 seconds adrift of the lead. Having said that, the times are dropping. To be fair, 2:17 is the order of the day. Rizzo and Ludo doing 2:16.9, but we're into the 2:17s. The only man going faster, Collado, in 5th place, 2:15.6. And although Collado is the quickest man on track, he's got a lot of work to do. He's a lap down officially, and really is going to be a 4-way battle, I would say, for the victory. And you could even narrow that down to 3 when you consider another driver off. That's the number 95 of Liu and Wang in the GTM class. And talking of GTM, Luff and Wang, as we just mentioned, in the number 23 car, 10th overall, but leading in GTM. They're ahead of Mo and Lim in the number 87, who are currently 12th overall. Farmer and Lim, 13th position, also in GTM. Duradeli and Cooney in 15th position overall, and chasing honours. We're looking at the number 8 car of Sauer and Fong, Adelaide Fong, the youngster who started out in single-seaters and now is in the dizzy heights of racing with one of the best drivers Japan's produced in a long, long time, Kitasawa. Kitasawa, of course, bringing Bentley their first ever win in Asia. The emotions at Okayama for him, which is where he started his career some 20 years ago in Formula Ford. What a long rise to being part of one of the biggest factory teams in motor racing, Bentley. Maybe a small team, generally speaking, but what they're doing at the world level with this Continental GT3 is outstanding. And Aston Martin, number 99 of Young and Lloyd. They took the pole position. Lloyd coming in for Jonathan Venter, out with an injury after a bicycle accident, and incoming Daniel Lloyd of Great Britain, and he's done a sterling job coming in here. Never been to Malaysia, never been to Sepang, and he has done a superb job. Man behind him is the number 15 car of Antidis and Salmon. They're in 14th position. They're a long way back at the moment, but still enjoying the racing with 24 minutes to go. But that's how we stand at the moment. Rizzo just crosses the line with a 2:16.9. Van Dam 2:17.3. 10 seconds the difference between them now. So the race is on, but it's a case of whether Van Dam can do anything in the last 24 minutes to catch that 10-second gap. And Sauer and Fong are far from Adelaide. Adelaide Fong pushing really hard as much as he can. In fact, Adelaide Fong at 2:15.077 last time out. Very much on it. Lloyd also in the 2:15s. What a race this is going to turn out to be. Now we're seeing the medal of these professionals. Collado even faster, but he's got more work to do. 2:14.1. There's no way in hell he's going to make it that close. But Collado will push all the way to the end for sure. But really, we're looking at a four-way battle for the win. Philippe Decombe watches on for ART. He was involved in the TCR Asia first event of the year, getting on the podium in that. And here is your leader, the 10-second lead for the beautifully painted yellow and red 458 number 37 that has marauded around the Asian region in the last couple of years, bouncing onto the scene a couple of years ago in Korea, and never looking back. It's been a fantastic combination, Rizzo and Liu. Davide Rizzo from Italy, racing for Ferrari and just flashing the lights to let everybody know that he's coming through, and he's trying to maintain that pace and maintain that lead. He'll want to get a bit of a slingshot if he can. And there's your third place car. He's being chased. Don't take any notice of the man behind him in the McLaren, because he's not in contention to compete against this Aston Martin. But he'll stick with him all the same, keep him honest. Coming out of turn 15. Right, crossing the line now, Rizzo, a 2:16.7 this time. Gap was 10 seconds. Let's see what it is now to Van Dam. They cross the line now. Nothing between Van Dam and Sawyer and Fong. Adelaide Fong at the wheel. And this is going to be a cracking finish. Now, where does the Bentley work his magic? Up the hill to turn 4. 21 minutes to go. Plenty of time for some more drama from this one. Another 2:14 from Lloyd. 2:13 this time from Collado. And will Fauzi and Lowe hold this battle for second and third up as they head through turn 6 and 7? Starting to get a little intense after almost 2.5 hours of work at the wheel and in the pits. Everything's been thrown at them in terms of conditions, but now, as we hoped, we've got perfectly dry conditions for the closing part of this race. It's certainly a drying line. You can see the spray has disappeared, no more windscreen wipers. Out of turn 9. Where does Adelaide Fong, if he can make a move, do so? Might just want to use the number 86 in front of them as a leverage to try and get on equal terms and make the move. Big region for Bentley, this, as it has been for Ferrari for so many years, and Porsche before that. And Bentley coming in and making a real splash last year, and they're very serious about monopolizing Asian racing if they can in GT3. A 2:15.4 this time by Rizzo. 62 laps completed. Here comes second and third place, battling between the back markers for position. Van Dam crosses the line. Biram Bhakti doing a 2:15.7. Fong at 2:15.7 himself. Cracking battle this. So the gap up to 11 seconds. That last lap by Rizzo and Luke, very impressive indeed to maintain the gap. But as you can see, it's the battle for second place, which is all important between Van Dam and Bhakti and Sauer and Fong. Through turn 5. Collado doing a brilliant job so far. He's got it down to just 50 seconds. So he's now joined the lead lap. Surely he can't do anything in 18 minutes, or can he? His last lap was at 2:12.1. That's so impressive. As the conditions dry out, he's some 3 seconds quicker than the leader of the race. So we now have a 5-way battle for the front.
Okay, so a little bit of news on the McLaren team. I was wondering why they were having dramas. I said to Hiroshi Yamaguchi, I hadn't seen the lightning strike, but clearly it landed in your pit garage because you've had all sorts of dramas. Now it looks like the number 55 car, it may not have been a wishbone failure. It may have been a shim,
okay.
But ultimately it looks like it might have been a gearbox failure that took the car. The number 15 car, it had an issue. We saw it come into pit lane. It had a starter motor issue. I think it was the 15 or the 5. The other one had a fuel pump issue. So here we've got a really good battle for position number 2. Adley Fong's going to try and go around the
Adley Fong around the outside on the Bentley. He's got position, and this could change the whole race. And that was a very, very big moment for the Bentley. But back comes Bakhti. What a race this is. They're side by side going through 3. Up towards turn 4. Fong has got through. Only just, though. That could have ended in tears.
That was a pretty tough move to fight. I mean, it is late in the race, so okay, you got the opportunity to fight back and try and take that position away, but Adley's really been charging. Very, very good lap times. But you were saying, Biren Bakhti's pace is impressive. He's been a real standout this year, so it's nice to see him right in the mix, but of course still on the podium. This is very, very valuable championship points. Frustration for the Craft Bamboo team. Also spoke to Takuma Aoki. They've had more cooling issues, so ultimately decided to park the car. So frustration for them. And the LKM Porsche had a drive shaft failure. So that's why we've seen them have to pull out of the race earlier.
It's starting to look like a Rizzo Liu win here at Sepang. They've got 16 minutes to go and a 14-second lead, and they are the fastest, or one of the fastest on track, ahead of second and third place. The fastest man on track is Collado, 2:12.9, but he's still some 49 seconds adrift of the leader.
Very impressive job by the twin turbocharged
Just to get
Bentley
on the lead
too.
lap again,
Yeah. The Bentley's amazing job. They've really been a threat right through this championship, and they will be right in the hunt. You would expect to see, perhaps, with Adley Fong taking away position number 2, that they will be the clear championship points leader after this race. But this really moves Rizzo and Liu right back into the championship. In fact, points-wise, you might see that the 37 car does, in fact, jump back to the top of the points list. Now, I don't want to say too much because we've still got 15 minutes to go in this race. I don't want to be the one that's responsible for a very major shift in the way this race is going to play out. But 2:13.8 that time around for Davide Rizzo.
And you got a feel for Myrick and Lee, 2:14 pace there on. Likewise, Lyons and Yu, who were stuck in the gravel. Lights flashing on the Bentley. And he's coming through on fellow Bentley, this time the 77. And Bakhti losing out again, as we kind of anticipated. But he put up a royal fight, that's for sure. So Sauer and Fong go up to second place. And Lloyd still in 4th, just did a 2:12, another impressive lap, and there he is, and coming fast for sure.
What a great replacement for Jonathan Venter. The team were a little bit concerned that they had a great dynamic. I mean, a lot of this is all about having the synergy between the teams, between the drivers, and getting everything ready to go for the championships. Looking at Carlo Van Dam on screen, he's got great synergy too with Piti Bhirombhakdi. But once that system had been broken, Jonathan Venter was injured. They had to replace him. Who do you replace him with? Is he going to fit the dynamic of the team? Will he be able to step up and join Darrell? And certainly, despite all that pressure and being just 23 years of age, Daniel Lloyd's done that and then some. He's done a fantastic job. He's probably been one of the real standouts here this weekend. And Piti Bhirombhakdi, to be perfectly honest, is another of them.
You call him Todd?
Todd Piti. He calls himself Todd.
Okay,
Todd Piti. Bhirombhakdi is a little bit of a mouthful for us poor English. I thought I heard a thunderclap out there earlier, but I may have been mistaken.
It's been a dramatic race for Lions and You. They're currently in 10th overall, but circulating it as fast as anybody. 2:12.9 last lap. Here comes your leader. They got 15 seconds. Crosses the line at 2:13.5. 13 minutes to go. Rizzo and Liu in the BBT. Ferrari 458 dives into turn 1. That's the gap. Sauer and Fong cross the line now. They do a 2:14.2. Adelaide Fong is not going to get any closer, I don't think, to the Ferrari in the next 13 minutes. If it all stays the same and equal, he's got enough problems trying to defend from Birambakti and Lloyd. Lloyd is the coming man, and there is still a chance that the VLT Aston Martin could make the podium. They're currently 4th. 19 seconds adrift of the lead, but very close to 3rd. And Colado's just getting quicker and quicker. He's got that gap down to 44 seconds now at 2:11.7. He's just doing lap after lap as we anticipate world-class laps here at Sepang.
Masterclass of lapping a Ferrari 4.5 out 8 around the Sepang circuit, James Collado, but it's just not enough. It was too big a void for him to pull back.
Whoa, that's not what you should be doing in an international racetrack.
It's going well and truly in the wrong direction.
He's got it back though. He's got it turned around the right way, thankfully.
27 car, that should be Adrian De Silva behind the wheel to close out this race. Again, finished, I think, on the podium for the KL Street Race, so no slouch. And looking to do more miles this year in the Ferrari 458 for the Nexus Infinity team. Very impressed with Adelaide Fong. The poor kid gets a bit of a bad rap. He's involved in GP3, of course, as you know. Hasn't had a particularly great run. He said to me the other day, he said, it's all qualifying again. He just shook his head. He said, I just can't qualify the car where I need to. He said, my race pace is good. I can run in the top 10, but once you start too far back, and 3/10, as young Matt Solomon, another young Asian driver who's racing Euro F3, has shown, he can be 3/10 off at 27th position. He's 3/10 off P5. It's got to be disheartening to do that sort of thing. But for Adley to come back here, join Keita Sauer, and in fact has been quicker than him for much of this weekend, that really shows the mettle of the young driver, and he's happy to go door handle to door handle with another driver and actually battle over position. So he will help this team work towards this championship. So nice to see them, 2-time winners already this year. So interesting to see where Adelaide Fong can end up in this race. But this
Here's
is
the
interesting.
battle. Here we go.
Daryl O'Young firing back. Oh, no, it's Daniel Lloyd. Daniel Lloyd
pushing Birambakti and
doing
pushing him for position.
Job.
This is for the podium. Out of 3 they come. Surely a chance to get past at turn 4, but you can imagine that the tie will get as wide as he possibly can. 10 minutes to go, and this is far from over. Lloyd is driving out of his skin right now, but he needs to get past. This is the battle for 3rd place, and the Bentley in front is not that far in front, Adelaide Fong. Lloyd is on the push in the VLT 99 Aston Martin. And the young junior academy Aston driver really trying to make a mark for himself in Asia. He'll get on the plane tomorrow night, and it'll be job done if he holds it all together. Meanwhile, Carlo Van Dam desperately hoping that they can stay in a podium position. He's put a lot of good work in. What a close to this race. Out of turn 9 then. Calm before the storm very much. He's gone through. So now what can Lloyd do in the closing stages? He comes onto the back straight. You can see how hard he's pushing. Daniel Lloyd of Huddersfield doing a brilliant job here in Sepang. He's now got his sights set on 2nd place, having moved up to 3rd. The line crosses for Rizzo and Liu. 2:12.7, the leaders. Here comes second place, Adelaide Fong. Fong does a 2:12.8. But Lloyd does a 2:12.7. So now it's game on, really. What can young Daniel Lloyd do in the closing 8 minutes of this 3-hour endurance race? You can see he's got his sights set on the Bentley. He's got visual on him, as they would say in Air Force terms. And now he's got a visual. It always makes it easier to focus on pushing harder. Having said that, they both did 2:12s in the last lap. It's going to be very hard. Traffic could play a part if Lloyd's going to catch Adelaide Fong. I don't see it happening personally. I think Adelaide Fong's got this one in terms of controlling the race where he is. He's not going to catch this team. Anthony Liu and Davide Rizzo, they've got a 16-second lead. Here they are. What an intriguing race it's been. Certainly everything's been thrown out but the kitchen sink. We always expect it here at Sepang, though, weather-wise, but it's just been a strange weekend. We've had no weather leading into the race, and then suddenly at the last minute, during the race, first stint in, perfectly dry conditions at the start, and then boom.
Now, I don't want to moz the overall result of this race, but I've just done some quick calculations based on current positions on track. If Davide Rizzo and Anthony Liu win this race, based on the double point scoring position, they'll move to 93 points in the championship. That move that Adelaide Fong put on Todd Pitty to take away position number 2 was vital, because they take position number 2 in this race. Their points, Soa and Fong, will move to 95 points, so they'll be leading the championship by 2 points outright. But Darryl Young, by virtue of moving, Daniel Lloyd, by virtue of moving the number 99 Craft Bamboo car up into position number 3, has also kept Darryl Young in the battle, 91 points. There'll be 4 points separating the 3 top teams in this championship.
Awesome.
That's just what you want. That's a fantastic result.
6 minutes to go. The VLT yellow and green energy drink blazoned Aston Martin dives through the corners. Daniel Lloyd at the wheel, his father with him here, came from Great Britain with that surprise call-up. They're really enjoying their weekend here. And they are the fastest men on track, 2:10.9. In fact, actually, they're not. 2:10.6 by Collado, just slightly quicker. But he's putting on a world-class performance. We're talking about James Collado, of course, one of the most experienced drivers out there. And Lloyd is going wheel-to-wheel with him effectively in terms of the times, anyway. Likewise, 2:12.2 by Lyons and Hughes. So some excellent times in the closing stages now in these dry conditions. And as I'd hope, we've got a perfectly dry circuit now, and I don't think there's going to be another downpour in the last 5 minutes. Famous last words, and you can see how hard he's pushing. There's the gap between second and third place.
Now, if that changes the outlook of the championship as well. That's just how much is in it. They swap those positions,
He's
and
got
suddenly
time, you know.
Darryl Young will be second in the championship, and Soa and Fong will be third. Sorry, that'd be equal at the top of the championship points table, I beg your pardon. So they'll retain the positions they started the championship with.
He was just under half a second quicker than Fong in the last lap, was Daniel Lloyd. And now with traffic in front, this could be a really, really important lap. We're going to look at a couple of laps to go, but this next lap could prove all important. Here comes your leader, no problems for him. He has a 16-point lead, a 16-second lead. He crosses the line now at the 37. On the way to victory. Paddy Roberts looking concerned as well he might. Now, the lights flashing, and well they might. The Bentley really needs to make quick work of the cars in front. He gets past both of them. Lloyd's got to get past them. He dives to the inside, turn 1. Time running out, 4 minutes to go. Bentley versus Aston Martin for the podium.
And if there is a position change, this will in fact put Darryl Young to the top of the championship points table. So this is really a vital push. Daniel Lloyd will be pushing as hard as he possibly can. But so too Adderley Fong. He'll be very keen to make sure they retain that position. But geez, the young Englishman's really gaining time.
Well, again, he took half a second out of him in that last lap, so he's making half a second a lap. But you can see the visual gap between them, and it's going to take, I think, a mistake or possibly another back marker to come in their way. But he's coming and coming fast, and the pressure must be huge for Adelaide Fong too. But like you say, he's a GT3 driver, and he's been there, done that, got the T-shirt, Formula One test driver, knows what he's doing. Here's your leader. It's been a brilliant performance by the pair of them. They started on the front row of the race, alongside the Aston Martin, which is currently in third place. But BBT have put on a great show again, and not a lot of credit is given to their engineers, you know, an Italian team, and they prepared this 458 brilliantly throughout the season. And again, good preparation here at Sepang in hot conditions. And there they are, the team I'm talking about. The clock ticks down then on this 3-hour race. One more time across the line for Rizzo and Liu, a 2:12.2 this time. Looking back, the battle for second and third still isn't over by any means. Can they do it? Sauer and Fong. Fong at the wheel in the Bentley. But the target is there. A 2:10.9 by Fong last time, a 2:10.2 by Lloyd. He's coming and coming quick, the young Englishman. Up to turn 4 for the leader. Oh, and he's still fighting it. You just see there in the glimpse how much he's fighting it as he exited 4. Oversteer, understeer, trying to grab the wheel and just make sure that as he puts the power down, he doesn't lose the back end of the car. Critical times. This is where the pressure's on, and this is where fatigue comes in as well. Been a long day of racing. Tense moments for the mechanics and all of those watching. 33 seconds between the top 5. That's very impressive over 3 hours. More impressive, though, is Collado. Insane. He's managed to take the gap from over a lap to down to 33 seconds to the leader. But it's a lone lap now with less than a minute to go for the BBT team. No question, unless there's a mechanical problem, Ferrari are going to win the 3 hours of Sepang, round 7 of the GT Asia Championship. And it looks as though there's going to be one more lap, the team discussing it. 30 seconds to go on turns of the clock, but he's going to get to the line before that. And then we'll have one last hurrah, but that all plays into the hands, possibly, of the second and third place battle. Here he comes. Still some 14 seconds and he's going to cross the line. This will be the last lap. And that makes it very, very interesting indeed for the battle for second and third. Rizzo and Liu then, 1 lap to go. And it's hitting up nicely here between Fong and Lloyd. What can he do? Bentley versus Aston Martin, the 2 British marks going head-to-head here in Malaysia. They dive into turn 1. Where does the Aston make the time? Critical moments for Adelaide Fong. Up towards 4. Back markers in the way, but a 9.5 second gap to second place. So he's got this one, just needs to hold it all together. Mistakes just aren't an option here now, because 10 seconds can be eaten up very quickly, especially with the pace that the boys chasing are. A 2:09.8 by Lloyd last time out. And again, half a second quicker. Van Dam and Biram Bhakti are going to finish 4th place. Collado and Mock, it looks as though, will take 5th. Tapie and Young 6th. Ang and De Silva 7th. Fauzi and Lowe still in the top 8. Through the back markers they come. You can see the battle for second and third behind raging on. Out of 9. Just a few corners to go here. This is the last lap of round 7, double points. And as you heard from Sean, who's headed down to talk to the winners when they get to the checkered flag. Rizzo and Liu have thrown themselves back into the championship hunt for 2015. One more corner to go then for the 458 Ferrari of BBT. It's been a brilliant performance. They've not put a foot wrong. They qualified well. They knew there was double points. Tense, indeed, it has been for the team. But despite the weather, they've come through, and they're going to win by over 10 seconds. Here they come then. And it is Anthony Liu and Davide Rizzo. And look at this battle for second and third. All the way through, just across the line. Adelaide Fong holds off the Aston Martin. Lloyd does a great job to take third place. And Van Dam and Biram Bhakti look as though they're going to take fourth place overall. Or will it be Collado? Ooh, with something smoking out the back there, but it's all celebration for Ferrari. Something went bang as they crossed the line. And it is Collado and Mock who take fourth place overall. They beat Van Dam and Biram Bhakti right at the dying closing seconds, and Collado got down to 27 seconds. That's an outstanding drive by James Collado and Mock Wen Sung. They take fourth place overall. That was a race that had everything for sure. And in the GTM Championship, coming to the line, Luff and Wang. Wouldn't say it was without incident, because they too have had to deal with the weather. Jerry Wang and Warren Luff in the Absolute Racing Audi R8 LMS GT3. There's your winner though. Waving to the crowd and almost going offline and off track, but a brilliant performance and a deserved performance by BBT. And here comes your GTM winner. Congratulations to Jerry Wang and Warren Luff. The Absolute Racing Audi wins in GTM, defeating Lim and Mo. Well, there's no question the format works, that's for sure. 3-hour race, the first one we've held in the history of GT Asia. Still plenty of racing to come from the weekend. The TCR Asia Championship in its infancy. One race down, 2 to go. And the Porsche Carrera Cup has 2 races tomorrow afternoon as well. Good performance by Bentley. And someone at 3 different manufacturers on the podium. Can't wait to get out of the car, can he? I don't blame him. And the Italian team ready to be celebratory. There's Anthony Liu. But Rizzo, the Italian, winning in an Italian car. Doesn't get any better than that. Congratulations to the bespectacled Davide Rizzo and Anthony Liu. It's been a fantastic and potent combination. Sean's in the thick of it. I'm sure we'll get a comment any minute now.
Davide, how was the closing stages of that race? It looked like it was a pretty tough one, but you really put in some hard laps and a nice result in the end.
Well, it was an unpredictable race, and rain didn't make it easy.
You never like to do it easy, Anthony Lee, do you? It's one of those things where it's nice to actually have a good race, but you took all this on, you battled the guys, and this gets you right back into the championship.
Well, it's good to know. I mean, I think we're second now. So 2 more races to go. We see what happens.
Davide, were you under pressure at any stage? Do you feel under pressure? You just wanted to press on in case the weather changed?
Tell me you are too slow, you have to improve your pace. I try my best, but I don't want to disappoint Anthony.
Was it your engineer or was it Anthony?
All of them, they all screaming at me.
I have a radio in the box.
Sounds like they've been giving him a hard time.
See if we can't talk to Adley Fong, who's now the outright championship points leader. Adley, fantastic drive. How do you feel after 3 hours of complete madness?
We knew it was going to be crazy. We knew Sepang was going to throw factors in which other tracks might not do with the weather. I just didn't expect it to be in the middle of stints. So we took gambles to keep on slicks, and it paid off. It was extremely close towards the end. I saved the tires a bit on the last stint because I knew the Aston was on new tires. So saved it until I saw him in the mirrors, and then I just pushed for the last 6 laps.
How important was that move on Pitty?
Extremely, I think. It's hard to say exactly how much, but for sure it must have given me a buffer to Darrell's car and the VLT car. So yeah, I'm just glad the outcome of today is really hot.
Son, how was it over those closing laps watching this battle roll down?
It was so hard to watch in the last 5 laps for me. So this season, first time to meet, I watched the finishing, then get the podium this year. So emotional.
And championship points leaders out right now.
Yeah, this is the main point for us. We are leading now, and we still have 2 races weekend in Shanghai and Thailand. Shanghai is better for Aston because we know already the data from last year, and also Thailand is nobody knows on the track, so we are now advantage, I think.
Congratulations. We'll just see if we can't grab the GTM class winner. Jerry Wang is leading the points coming in, and great job by Warren Luff. But Jerry, you'd have to be happy with that. It looked like it might be a tough weekend for you, and you've managed to pull it off. You're still in the championship points lead.
Yes, the 2 DNFs was costly, but today made it all worth it. And of course, thanks to Warren and Absolute Racing giving us a great car and great co-driver to have. Seriously.
Well, so you've driven in a lot of amazing conditions over the years, but how difficult was that race?
Yeah, look, that was really difficult. Sepang always throws in some unbelievable weather, and today was no different. So, look, the guys at Absolute Racing did a fantastic job. They got the strategy right, and full thanks to Jerry for having me on board. He did an amazing job all weekend, and yeah, just can't thank the team and all the guys. It's been a lot of fun, and hope to come back.
You keep being hard on yourself. We usually have the driver debriefs and you say, oh, I've done this and I've done that, but you're leading the championship, and those conditions, they couldn't have been more drastic. Changeable conditions, wet, dry. How did you cope?
It was a bit of dancing around a must-have because when I went out, it was a debate of whether to go dry or go slicks or wet. Then I saw the Bentley guys were going on slicks, but then we decided to use the same wet tire Warren came in with, and I think that turned out to be the right decision because they were just patches of rain that made life really difficult. So I'm happy that we had the right tire selection, and of course, Warren did a great job.
Congratulations to you both. Back to you, Johnny.
Perfect stuff, Sean. Lovely work and getting the guys at the perfect time, and a little bit of jocularity between the winners for sure. Davide Rizzo saying that the team giving them a hard time as we check the results. They didn't need to. It was a brilliant result for Ferrari. Rizzo and Liu close in on the championship lead, but Sauer and Fong, and you heard from Kitasawa there, the Japanese already worked out, as Thailand is going to be an unknown to them, just how it looks in terms of their hopes of the 2015 championship. They take second place, but more importantly, they're in the championship lead. Oh Young and Lloyd, brilliant display of racing by Lloyd to take third place overall. Luff and Wang win in GTM. They're 11th overall, and a little further down the order. Caldarelli and Wu will rue the day. Sadly, it didn't work out for them. Likewise, Kato. Aoki, likewise, and Hirata didn't have the spectacular day that they wanted at Sepang. But it's been a fascinating day. And as we heard from Adelaide Fong, I think he summed it up nicely when he said that they knew that Sepang would throw up weather-wise something different, something special. They had to prepare for that. But no one expected it to come when the weather came in the middle of stints, and that really threw the cat amongst the pigeons in terms of choice of tyres. Going on the slicks was the right choice, and it proved perfect for Sauer and Fong. Great racing by the Bentleys to get where they needed to go, but nothing can be taken away from the 458 Ferrari of Davide Rizzo and Anthony Liu. They are, without doubt, a potent force here in GT Asia, and they've done it again, and they too have narrowed the gap and made this championship wide open. Let's head to the podium. Back to Sean to introduce the top three again. Great performance, and Darryl O'Young and Daniel Lloyd can be proud of. There he is, the youngster. First time we've really taken a proper look at him. Adelaide Fong and Kedasau, but hats off to this combination of Hong Kong and Great Britain, because they really did do a great job to take third place overall. And the winners, Davide Rizzo and Anthony Liu.
Third place, pole sitters, Darryl O'Young and young Englishman Daniel Lloyd, who you'd have to agree drove a brilliant final stint in this race.
And time for a quick selfie.
Nice selfie from Kedasau. Second place, Kedasau and Adelaide Fong.
And congratulations to the Bentley Absolute team. A lot of guests here today. They can celebrate tonight with an excellent performance. But it's Ferrari. 3 different manufacturers on the podium here, just as was scripted. And a look to the heavens. Congratulations to our top 3. Ferrari, Bentley, and Aston Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Jimmy Yee. We'd like to invite the drivers to open the champagne and celebrate what has been a fantastic 3-hour race here at Sepang International Circuit.
So, time for celebration. No one going too crazy just yet. Too exhausted. 3 hours of that. They're wet enough as it is. They've been soaked all day long. Turn to the presentation for the GTM.
Now at the podium presentation for GT Asia Series Round 7 GT Masterclass. Third place, Kiabulam and Lawrence Farmer from Jeep Racing.
So Lim and Farmer in 3rd place overall and 13th place overall in the actual race itself.
Fantastic debut in the GT Asia Series, and congratulations on making the podium. The winners, Warren Love and Jerry Wang from Absolute Racing. And a nice extension in the GTM class.
Second place to Lim and Mo. And your winners, one from Australia in the form of Warren Love. You heard the interview. They're very proud of each other, the pair of them, Wang and Love. Third place to Lim and Farmer. And congratulations also to GDL. That's their first entry into the championship, and they're straight away on the podium, so they can be proud of their weekend too. But the Absolute Racing team of Luff and Wang, who win in the Masters class, and it was a Master class. In those conditions, anybody who's on the podium deserves a real round of applause.
And thank you to Mr. Jimmy Yee from Auto Art, a great supporter of the GT Asia Series. And it's time for the champagne.
Well, a little bit more celebration for the GTM class, and they're gonna get into it. But it's been a very, very telling day in terms of the championship. We always knew it would be. And At the end of the day, look how we stand. Katasawa and Adelaide Fong, 95 points, but 2 points behind now. Anthony Liu and Davide Rizzo. That's how we stand. Daryl O'Young just 1 point behind with 92 points, helped brilliantly by Daniel Lloyd. Pitti Birambakti with 70 points. Jonathan Venter, who couldn't make this race, 63. And Mok Wen Sung going up the board for sure in 8th position. 61 points, just 1 point ahead. Carlo Van Dam and Duncan Tappy behind them. Little further down, Jackie Young, Richard Wee, Frank Yu dropping down to 47 points. I say dropping down, but they didn't have the result they wanted. Likewise, Richard Lyons. They're still 47 points and with work to do with 2 rounds to go. And Matthew Griffin not here this weekend. So a 3-hour race, an endurance race, and it really was just that. From the get-go, it was the Aston Martin that had the pole position and the lead early on. We started off in perfectly dry conditions. And opening 20 minutes was frenetic and fun. And it looked as though we were going to have plain sailing in the sunshine. But that would change very quickly. Into the pits. And a good battle early on. Carlo Van Dam determined to take the lead ahead of Daryl O'Young, which he did. And coming towards the end of the first stint, it was a battle between the Aston Martin. The Delango Racing Lamborghini caught out of sorts. Aoki and Urata getting it wrong. Mok Wen Sung in the number 1. But then down came the weather. And it rained very hard indeed. And it didn't really matter whether you went on wets or dries. It was just tough conditions.
Get a rest, but there you go. That's the latest from Duncan Tappy and the Bentley team. So I think...
And as the rain continued to pour down, the conditions didn't ease up either. Some choosing out of the window to come in and change tyres to wets. But in many ways, it didn't make that much difference. And you can see atrocious conditions and really having to charge on regardless. Mok Wen Sung getting it wrong. Richard Wee into the pits. And the leaders coming in. Big moment for Frank Yu, spinning out and getting into the gravel and losing out. And really so tough to get it right in these conditions with such powerful cars and such slippy conditions. Plenty of highlights throughout, but out of the wet and the rain came the winners, Rizzo and Liu. A brilliant performance. There was some big moments for sure. Adelaide Fong getting past Birambakti for 2nd place. And then in the closing stages, Lloyd would make his run. Thumbs up for Bentley. But in the end, it was Davide Rizzo and Anthony Liu. Rizzo taking the checkered flag. How close was 2nd place? Fong holding off Lloyd. But in the end, it was Rizzo and Liu as they come ever closer to a championship lead. That's it for GT Asia. My thanks to Sean. I'm Jonathan Green. Join us next time out for the next round of the championship.